رضا پهلوی وارث تاج ایران، انتظارمون روز شاهیته، سرفرازیمون پادشاهیته.
زن زندگی آزادی، مرد میهن آبادی، جاوید شاه، جاوید شاه.
این ملت آزادی میخواد، به جای غم شادی میخواد، ایران آزاد شکوه دیرین میخواد.
زن زندگی آزادی، مرد میهن آبادی، جاوید شاه، جاوید شاه. مردم ایران بازگشت تو رو از خود میخوان، ایران آزاد میشه، شاه برمیگرده، این آخرین نبرده، پهلوی برمیگرده.
زن زندگی آزادی، مرد میهن آبادی،
جاوید شاه، جاوید شاه.
این آخرین نبرد، پهلوی برمیگرده.
جاوید شاه،
جاوید شاه،
پهلوی برمیگرده.
جاوید شاه.
Hello, people. ZDMC, you've been around here a while, and I haven't given you a wrench. Why haven't I given you a wrench? Do I know you? Are you one of the people that I'm definitely not giving a wrench to because I don't like you? Okay, I gave you a wrench. Don't abuse it. Hello, people. So the reason for the stream being late is because Grizz was streaming, and I like to not step on anyone else's toes when I know about it. Hezzy, do you have time to jump on? Probably not. Guess not. But if you do, we can talk. So, yeah, Grizz's fault. He did put a link to my channel at the end on his train, and I was like, you missed a chance to like say Orient Express, but okay, it's all good. The deal. So, as you may be aware, my whole thing is trying to see through the propaganda, through the smoke, and recognizing when you can't see through the smoke. And therefore, I have been very, very careful, despite the fact that I've been trying to see through the smoke, about what exactly is going on. See, Hezzy, so the Daily yesterday, and I only heard it this morning. So apparently Sunday night, Trump called up the New York Times, Washington correspondent, White House correspondent, and had a half an hour discussion with him about the see, yeah, I don't think that's so That's so clear. That's so clear. So the I mean, the daily episode is very short. I kind of do recommend listening to it if you are as impatient as I am to find out what's in the deal. Apparently, the deal's actually been inked. Like, the words are set, and the whole thing until Friday is kind of to like give people time to be ready for when it's to get people ready, right? And try to sell the necessary people on it, but apparently they've come to an agreement. And there's a list of things that Iran wants, and there's a list of things that the United States wants. And the question is, what's the exact deal? Now, there are people like Chazi who are rabid Zionists, and despite the fact I love them, they're rabid Zionists. God have mercy on their souls. Grizz doesn't trust certainly Mark, but probably Father Stephen as well. Well, there may be non-public back channel agreements as well, but Iran is not that capable of having such agreements because they're in such a state that the government isn't fully functional. It's not like Mojtaba Khamenei can decide to make something happen, tell a bunch of people to shut up, and tell other people to do things, right? But back to the question of what did Trump give Iran? Why is Iran agreeing to this? What I didn't hear at all in the conversation with whatever the name of his, what was the name of that guy? Okay. The New York Times, David Sanger. What David Sanger has not mentioned at all is, okay, I mean, if you want to send me what deal he spelled out, there's no sanctions relief, as far as I can tell. And that was the only thing that I think it would be a mistake to give Iran, is sanctions relief. Unfreezing their assets. I could see it happening. I think it would be a big mistake. But what appears like Trump is trying to sell is, oh, that Netanyahu, he hates this. And Hezzy's gonna love this interpretation. Okay, exactly. So nothing. Look, if you see it how I see it, which is Israel is a pawn of the United States in the Middle East. It is a meat shield. It is a stooge. It is a our can't even think of a better word than serf or slave, right? Our little mercenary cat's paw, which is precisely what it appears to be. What Trump gave Iran apparently is, oh, I'm going to stop Israel from from destroying Hezbollah. All the headlines today are Trump lost the war, from breaking posts to Hassan and Fox and beyond. Yeah. That all the headlines were always going to be that. They were always going to be that. What did you expect? If you knew what the results of those headlines were going to be a month ago, then they're not headlines. Do you see a way through this? Hard question, granted. Well, what do you mean? I mean, I don't know what the deal is. It looks to me like the deal is we're going to not destroy Hezbollah. Like, okay, so Trump agreed to send a stern letter to Benjamin Netanyahu. Like, Israel isn't even a signatory to this deal. What does it mean for Iran, for the United States to say to Iran, yeah, we won't let Israel destroy Hezbollah? And how is Khamenei going to sell this to the Iranian people? Oh, you know what? We had this war so that Hezbollah wouldn't get destroyed. Hello, my dear friend Khazi.
Hello, Jacob.
How are you doing, my dear friend Khazi?
Good. Catching up on work, but I thought I would join for a few minutes. I commented that we're still better off before October 8th, 7th, but we're still worse off. Again, no one knows the exact details. I'll say like this, though. And you're right that it could still be like a long game and a ploy, and like this is really like, to get everyone's guard down. Now, there was an interesting comment that Trump said, which is, the first dictators were the first group of leaders was already killed, and the second group of leaders was already killed, and this is the third group of leaders. And they're much nicer to work with. Now, whether that's because of because they're not because they're terrified or because they're actually playing along, hard to know. And obviously, Iran is in a much weaker state, and we don't even know what's going on the ground. However,
Khazi, you're from the Middle East. You're from the Middle East. How are you talking like this?
What, we don't know what's going on the ground?
No. Like, do
you know? 1 second.
No. Hold on. A deal. All that matters about a deal, you can make promises all you want. All that matters about a deal is facts on the ground. What actually happens? Correct?
1 second. So that you are correct, and that's how we could say we'll see, right? But then you don't have to do any of your streams, right? We'll just wait what happens in the end. Obviously, we're talking this out right now. So what I feel is that at this level right now of interpretation, let's say from a bird's eye view, and Israel was part of this as well. There is a feeling in the West. We can argue later what's the right cause to go to war, but in the West, including Israel, the attitude was always, it's not worth going into that fight. We're going to lose people on the ground. We're not going to go into this fight. Even in Israel, even if Bibi or people on the right wanted to go have a war before October 7th, the population, the civilians would not allow for that.
Please clarify. Please clarify. You're saying going to war. I think you mean with Hezbollah?
Any war. I'm saying if Israel wanted to go into Gaza, if Israel wants to go into the territories, there's always resistance, because what if our soldiers die? What if people get hurt? Right now, October 7th, Israel woke up to a new reality, which is everyone is a consensus right now, which is like, we must fight now, which allowed us to then even go through, the Seventh Front War and eventually attack Iran. And then Donald Trump decides to join that fight as well. And as far as Israel was concerned, right here stands the West and realizes that we have to fight evil. We have to say no to this. Now, we see that England is not that, and France is not that, and Germany spent hundreds of millions into building this huge army when they have no soldiers that actually want to fight. And it's a real question: is anyone left in the West that's actually going to fight, actually will stand up to? And this is what people have to understand: these groups, and what we just saw this in Iran. It didn't matter that you're bombing them. It doesn't matter that they're economically falling, right? Nevertheless, right, this kind of attitude doesn't allow you to, like you have to really figure out how you're going to fight these kind of bad guys. And what I feel like up until now, Donald Trump was applying the pressure, and now there seems to be a capitulation. Now, like you said, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I'm not surprised. I'm not shaken by what Donald Trump is saying, because tomorrow he could change his tune again.
What's the capitulation? How did he capitulate?
First of all, we don't know what the deal is still with the ballistic missiles, which is a huge problem. Right? It's not only the atomic.
Hezi, my question was, how did he capitulate?
Not having ballistic missiles as part of that deal. At least that we don't know.
What deal?
What do you mean, what deal?
What deal? Like,
did he just say something was signed?
Something was signed. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So
and
it seems,
and that you're like, oh, what do you how do you want the United States to have acted differently regarding the missiles?
So I'll tell you what. First of all, what do you mean completely dismantle your ballistic missile program?
So troops on the ground, not going to happen.
What? Saying it's not going to happen. Donald Trump said this. The American people are not going to stomach that. And maybe this is the wrong war. What war will you stomach? It seems like the West stomachs nothing anymore. It's either because of white guilt, or the dark man is oppressed and that's why he can't, or we just can't get ourselves to say this is a problem and they need to be stopped.
I think you're getting into something very different, which is the fact that the West has lost its will to live.
Well, I see that. What's up? But I see that in this deal. This deal to me is an example where
what in this deal? How is this deal any different from what existed 2 months ago, or 6 months ago, or 10 years ago? The United States was not going to invade Iran.
1 second. 10 years ago, would you have said, Donald? Would you 10 years ago have said America would have done what it just did right now?
No.
Right. Okay. So things obviously change. After October 7th, things changed. Israel decided to actually attack Iran. Iran decided to shoot around people, act crazy.
Thank you very much for making my point. So right now, we're in much better position than we were even 6 months ago.
First of all, did I not say Israel's in a better position than it was? Worse than it was a few months ago. Why do I say worse than a few months ago? Because, and we don't know yet, what it would seem like is this deal is basically, first of all, you've just handed Iran basically the attitude, like they now have the Hormuz Strait, which they could always do this move again.
First of all, I think what happened more than anything is that Iran realized and its neighbors realized the Strait of Hormuz doesn't work how everybody imagined. The fact oil is at $80 a gallon. It may be 90 now, maybe 90, but probably around 80, right? I mean, barrel, not a gallon. I'm sorry, Hormuz didn't work out the way Iran thinks it did.
I mean, are you going to tell me right now that it didn't? And you could say maybe this is because of miscalculations, but are you going to tell me it didn't affect the world economy for the last few months?
Oh, I think it did, but I from everything I've seen, it's been better for the United States. Like, the people are definitely talking about alternatives to the Strait of Hormuz. There's been shifts. The Arabs have become more. Will lessons be learned from this? You hope. I don't like the language. Which again, I could play the devil's advocate, but initially I don't like the language of saying
Israel shouldn't be involved with Hezbollah, and it should be Giuliani, whatever his name is, in Syria that takes care of him. Now, you could also say, that sort of allows to pummel Hezbollah and not have Israel involved in that, right? And then maybe it's a good move. Maybe it's who knows how that happens.
What I was trying to clarify was, I think this is just another case, which as an American, I don't mind, of Israel playing to agreeing to play the bad guy, take all the blame, everything for what the United States wants. Like, is Israel is a vassal state, and Bibi dances to whatever tune whatever the US president is, does, and that's it. Finished.
You could look at it that way. You could look at it as being Israel sees itself as far as if America does want to back out of the Middle East, it does need, you'll call it its vassal state. The other regional power over here that they need to leave in charge is going to be Israel. And if Israel wants to partake in that responsibility, then obviously you need Big Brother America to still keep Erdogan and Turkey, which is like the next situation we're going to have to deal with. You have to keep them in place.
Well, you actually brought up a big point, and this is something, and my Eastern Orthodox brothers and sisters are going to dislike this. The fact is, Al-Shara is playing a very different game than I think most people realize. Things have changed dramatically, and yeah, if there's something going on in the back channel, it's actually with Al-Shara. That's what's going on. That's
what happens. So you're right, and saying he'll take care of Hezbollah is it's grounds to now allow you to build this person up for that purpose, right? We're gonna help him do this. We're gonna help him do that.
He's not gonna destroy Hezbollah. He's gonna put them on a leash, because of course he's not gonna destroy them. He's gonna put them on a leash.
Yeah, the question is going to be now, which is how Israel will participate.
Gilad,
will Israel still attack if they feel necessary? What are the ramifications that are going to be? I don't know. Considering the fact that we were almost in war a week ago and then basically somehow got to some deal 2 days later, this could easily flip on its head in the next few days. However, ultimately, the most important thing right now is going to be the election date in Israel.
This is definitely certainly from your view, and Gilad,
no, not from my view.
Hear what you're saying, but the more I looked into it yesterday with regards to like what's going on with the Antiochian Church and Al-Shara, like I think Al-Shara may be playing a long game. We'll see. This is my prediction. If you see Patriarch John X, his brother, either, I doubt his brother is still alive. If his brother's still alive, maybe being freed, or at least his brother's body being returned to him, I think that's actually going to be a big thing. But that's just me personally. I think the Eastern Orthodox angle has really captured me. So that's a whole other thing that I would like to talk to people about. But Gilad, what would you like to talk about?
I mean, it's an Iran stream. I think that's what we're going to talk about.
What did Trump give Iran?
Do we know? So, I mean, my sense of it is a lot of the things we see in Israel are a combination of unbelievable genius and indescribable idiocy. I don't know how to otherwise frame it. It's the same country that does the pager operation and this decapitation strike and everything, but the way that it's run, and I've said this throughout the war. Like I often say I hope I'm wrong about what I think, like how I think things will end up. I think in this specific conflict, I was hoping a lot more. Like I told you, like I was really hoping that I'm wrong, and like I know that it's complicated, and we've talked about it. You know, the economic angle and everything that was destroyed in Iran, and all of those things. But on the thing I really hoped I was wrong about, if I'm honest, is that I did not see the freedom for the Iranian people coming to fruition. And I don't see it now. And I know you think, military dictatorship is better, and usually it's, probably the way that most things advance is from a theocracy to a different type of dictatorship. But yeah, like that to me is clearly, even if it wasn't the stated objective, the way that the campaign was led, makes me think it was clearly intended and did not happen.
The dust certainly has not settled. We don't exactly know. One of the things that's been an indication for me, Jadal, which is that guy that I listen to, who's the propagandist, he hasn't had a broadcast in 3 days. He hasn't had a broadcast in 3 days. I think that means something.
I want to comment on something that Gilad said. That first off, again, it's not. I don't love seeing that Donald Trump is now sort of walking back, saying like, that was never part of the campaign, right? So, and
he said that from the very beginning.
I understand, but the fact of the matter is, like, again, I think there should be a more. It should be stressed more that is obviously something that the world and America, as far as leading this, is expecting sort of to see.
One tiny thing, Jacob, like the whole crisis started with help is on the way after Iran murdered tens of thousands of their own people. So even if the objective wasn't stated like that, the framing and the narrative were there. So it seems like that was a hedge.
But 1 second.
I think everybody realizes, and everyone has always realized, that the United States would very much prefer Pahlavi to the Ayatollahs. That's not a question. The question is, when we went into this, did we think we can actually install Pahlavi? No.
No,
and that was obvious, and that's why, like, if you're hedging, like, that was not the objective that the United States went into, because it was not a reasonable objective.
Jacob, no. So 1 second. What I think the scenario is, Israel and both America were hoping that, this kind of strike would allow for the conditions on the ground, would allow for something like this to potentially build. Now, to be fair, right, it was a tremendous attack, right? There was a decapitation strike, further attacking again, but hence, that's why I feel worried, because you could see that even attacks like this, even like, you have 2 million armed Iranians that are holding hostage, 80, whatever it is, 87, 89 other million Iranians. And if this kind of attack didn't work, if we didn't manage to bring Iran to, quote unquote, its knees, then this deal, which we don't know what it is right now, to me seems like that's not the route forward, because it's sending a horrible message out there to the world.
You're
muted, Jacob.
Hello, Daniel. I don't believe I know you.
Hey, we met before on Christian King's channel.
Okay.
Yeah, I was telling you about Bernstein's book, Surprised by Christ, and I ended up getting muted by the chat. They're like, "You need to tell this guy the gospel," and I'm like, "I don't know. I'm actually saying there's an Orthodox book." Yeah.
Oh yeah, I actually first of all I have I have Bernstein's both his books. They were not very long,
Oh, excellent.
and they didn't say much in my opinion. But I am definitely
Okay.
aware of Bernstein. So just to explain, you were representing Eastern Orthodoxy in a discussion by what's his name again? What the streamer?
Christian King. Yeah, Christian King.
Right. And yeah, they lots of people calling me liars and stuff. And it was people getting mad at the idea that I actually made Kiddush at the Antiochian village. And not only did I make Kiddush on a Friday night, but Father Stephen actually participated in Kiddush, as did other people, and people lost their mind.
They did. They definitely did.
And look, if making Kiddush makes people lose their minds, I kind of feel like I've done my job in making Kiddush. That's my personal opinion, but
it's the secret recipe ingredient.
the secret recipe of yeah. So what made you jump onto this stream in particular, or is it just you just happen to be on?
Well, I am subscribed to you. I said I would subscribe to you on that day, and I've seen some of your videos, but I saw you were streaming right now and talking about this deal with Iran, and I do have some thoughts on it, not many, but I would say that number one, I think Israel is going to end up being in control of the Middle East. I think America is going to get out of it after this because it's such a terrible defeat. And we might get dragged back into it a few more times, but it's such a what do you call that? There's a word for this in the military when something just goes really wrong.
Snafu?
Or, just say a carfungal. It's a carfungal, I guess. I don't know. It's definitely not a win. How about that?
Well,
not putting it the most eloquently, but we're definitely not winning this war at this point.
See,
so
okay.
It's like
what makes you say that? What are the actual indications that this has been the disaster you're saying it was?
Because we did a regime change during a negotiation, which makes us look like we're not good faith negotiators. Number one. Number two, we never got any of our goals completed. So we were supposed to stop a nuclear program that never was even happening anyway, and maybe stop the missile program, I guess. And we supposedly demolished their military, but to this day, they're still taking down our aircraft. So we are trusting the government less as a people in America, but also the world's trusting us less. And it just ends up looking really bad from an optics point of view.
I have to agree with you that this look what the picture you are painting looks bad from an optics point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean this to be insulting in any way, but this what I would call a mirage that you are seeing is precisely the mirage that the propaganda is, I believe, is trying to project. I know a lot of people believe in it, but when it comes down to it, and this is actually, it's funny that you jumped on, because for me, what's more important is actually the whole Eastern Orthodox look. Patriarch John is based out of Damascus. The Antiochian Metropolitan Saba is actually acting as a leader in the Orthodox Church in the United States. what too few people are willing to recognize is that Metropolitan Saba was named Metropolitan of North America under Bashar al-Assad, right? That's not a small thing. And Bashar al-Assad is no longer there. This guy al-Shara is. He is holding the Antiochian community in hostage in Syria right now. Like, the idea that Israel could be controlling the entire Middle East, like, I'm sorry, I find that ridiculous to even start with. Like, despite what Chazi may want, like, Israel is a tiny country with a lot of problems and a very small Jewish population and a very small Arab population as well. Like, in the big scheme of things, Israel, I don't think, is an actual player.
Oh, Jacob.
Syria is a much bigger player.
Oh my God.
Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Turkey.
Not even close.
Well, you're right.
Israel's not in the top 10.
Israel is.
As far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so number one is I reject completely the Pax Judaica
Thank you.
narrative. What?
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, the narrative that's coming from Professor Jin, I disagree with that Pax Judaica. Do I think Israel's like the regional power? Like, for sure, without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Well,
Give
so
me a strong
hold
military.
on. Gilad, do you think Israel is the regional power without a doubt?
Yeah.
You do? Okay.
I mean, look, there are very few people, and I'm talking about really respectable analysts from a lot of different directions. Like, if you're talking about Israel and its neighbors at the moment, do you think Lebanon is an existential threat to Israel, or Israel potentially to Lebanon, or similarly, from Syria? Like, you could talk about Egypt, right, in a different light, right? But the
Turkey.
Turkey.
Turkey is definitely a power, right? I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying
Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia is, first of all, a bit further out, and its role is, I think, first of all, like, Saudi Arabia has its own, like, extremely complex geopolitical situation. So, like, it has very few people. Whatever military force it has is based primarily on mercenaries. Its relationship with Iran long before this conflict was very fraught. I think it's a very complex situation, but in terms of
Pakistan?
Pakistan, like, you're going, like, okay,
I'm saying Middle East.
Israel is not as powerful as India, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like,
But by the way, Gilad, we're making peace deals with India. We're also a tech giant in our region as well. We're also a military giant in our region as well.
Your region, you're not even including Pakistan in your region.
Yeah, I'm not including Pakistan in our region. And, like, that's what happens when you're a country like Israel. With all due respect, like, the scale in which Israel is a regional power is smaller because Israel is a smaller country. Like, if you're talking about, like, you can't compare Israel to definitely the global powers. You can't compare them to the middle powers. Israel cannot, compare itself to Canada or the EU. There's a lot of ways, but that doesn't matter.
That is exactly what matters, because in the American mind, Israel and China and the United States are fighting over world domination.
Okay, so if people like, I get that it's a stream, right? But I think like this might be semantics in the sense that we might have similar understandings, but we're just not agreeing on the words to describe them.
This is what I'm trying to clarify here, right? For the people who are actually listening here, right? They're here, they're listening to you and Chazi go, well, Israel is a regional power, and they're thinking, well, they mean at least the Middle East.
Yeah. Well, I think
Pakistan is part of the Middle East.
Pakistan is part of the Middle East in, you know, in a similar way to how like the Baltic or like Finland is part of, you know, Western Europe, right? Like the Pakistan is a part of the Middle East as much as it's a part of India, like in that region. So like you could, I don't know, I don't think it's that important to like suss out all of these things, but I'm just saying like Israel
let's frame it differently,
a
Gilad.
significant actor, right? And the actions that Israel takes in this region have far-reaching consequences.
Yes, they have far-reaching consequences, but I want people to see. This is the thing. Here we are in America, right? We know basically there's Canada, there's Mexico / all of the Spanish-speaking south of the border, and then there's Europe, and then there's Africa, and then there's Asia, which is like China's in there somewhere, and then there's like Africa, right? And that's basically it. And maybe some people know that India exists, okay? And those people in the United States, and this is what we're dealing with, those people imagine when Joe Rogan was asked how many Jews are there, I think he said something like 20% of the world's population.
But Jacob, listen, Jacob, can Australia beat Israel? No.
I mean,
no.
probably
The answer is no. Can Mexico? No. Can Brazil? No. So,
Brazil, yeah, Brazil. Hold on.
No.
Hold on. Brazil is
Just
a
list
very
right now.
important regional power. It's one of the largest countries in the world with a lot of natural resources and a lot of people. And yes, it's a developing nation, but there's a reason why BRICS doesn't include Israel.
Why we
can I just like maybe pause, like just maybe I don't know, taking over the conversation, but I think if you make a claim like Brazil or Australia or something, can they beat Israel? That to me makes no sense because it has no context. So I'm not, like, it's not that it's a question.
I'll give you
no. It's just a meaningless
I'll give you the
question.
context. Are we more technologically advanced? Is our military more powerful? And
more powerful.
You realize you're an Israel chauvinist. That's really cute.
Just to you ask a question. So like more power is not the way it works. It's not a number. So you could say, and this is the same like when people talk about Russia, Ukraine. Russia is more powerful than Ukraine, right? But the context of the conflict makes things play out in a different way.
Gilad,
and the way in which, just a second, I just want to like point out what I'm trying to say. The way in which Israel is an actor is relevant to where Israel is. And my point was like the geography point that Jacob was making. You look at all of that map, right? And you look, what is that little spot at the meeting point of Africa and Europe and Asia, and that's Israel. And that location for the entirety of history has had significance to all of those continents, right? Less significance to America, obviously, because it's farther away. But though being in that like specifically the meeting of continents, means that like a lot goes on there.
But if in historically speaking, Israel was the one that's sort of being pushed around and things happening through it, putting aside a small little gap during Solomon's period, which I guess all the three other powers weren't just fighting. But now, in today's day and age, you could push back. I'm saying, and your level of influence in that. I love that you're shaking your head no, Jacob. It's just, what are you painting? That Israel's a little weak country that can't do anything?
Yes. That
But
is.
you sound ridiculous when you say that.
So when you say that, just to be clear, what period of history? Like, I know right now you're saying we're weak, but do you say like Israel was always weak from the moment of its inception under the Soviets and during the 6-Day War, or like when?
He's
when
talking about Solomon. He's going all the way back to Solomon.
No,
Jacob, just answer my question. I'm just saying, like, when you're saying that Israel is like a vassal state, I think Israel has certainly gotten to be extremely close with the U.S., and I think there is merit to your point. I'm not fully in agreement, but I don't think you're absolutely wrong about it. I'm just saying, I don't think that that's a full description of what Israel has been, is, and is going to be. So, like, that's. So I'm just trying to understand where you're coming from. When you're saying Israel's weak, are you talking about what time period? Like the last 10 years, the last 100 years?
Okay.
What are we talking about?
What I'm talking about is here in the United States, we hear about Zog. I don't know if you've heard of Zog, but on the right wing, there's this idea. And now on the left wing, there's this idea of Zog, Zionist occupied government, right? Which is the idea that Israel is taking care of. Oh, you have to go? Okay.
sorry, I just have a Zoom call, but I'll
Okay.
try to jump on later.
Be well. Although that might be better. I love Chazi, but like, okay, like I want people to understand, and this has been my entire thing, right? Israel as a regional power, yeah, Cyprus, Greece, Lebanon, like they have to consider Jordan, right? Has to consider Israel as like a regional power that's important, right? Maybe even like bigger powers, which I would say Syria, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Turkey. They are big powers that actually rein in the regional capacity of Israel to do things, right? Like Israel is a small regional power, and yeah, it punches above its weight for a large extent because it's doing the bidding of the United States.
Well, that's actually what I was going to ask, Jacob, my understanding is that before Israel was aligned with the United States, didn't they beat a bunch of Arab states in the 6-Day War?
Well, I mean, okay. So first of all, you can't say that wasn't completely without U.S. Involvement. I think that there was certainly some support from some sectors of. Really? Okay. I mean, you know this stuff much better, but I didn't think like.
If you know something, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I'm like, from what I know, the guns were like Czech and Polish, and the planes were French, and like I'm pretty sure the U.S. at that point, like there was a whole story about how after the 6-Day War, the United States and Israel came closer.
I mean,
like,
they did.
Like if you bring me like really good documents, I'll believe you, but I don't know of that such involvement.
Yeah, as I understand it, it wasn't like there wasn't warm feelings towards Israel, at least in some segments of American public, right? do I think Israel has any capacity to stand on its own if the United States was like, we're cutting you off? And certainly if the United States was against Israel, right? I think I think that the various Arab nations could definitely take Israel if the United States and England and like if without I don't think Israel could have taken the Suez Canal without the British involvement, right?
I mean, on one hand, like you're absolutely right, but it's a bit of a truism for any country that's not a global power, right? Like,
But that's the point. Israel is not a global power,
Yeah.
whereas in a lot of people's minds, including apparently Chezi, like Chezi keeps on saying, we're a little superpower. And I'm like, you're a little superpower the way Pakistan, less than Pakistan, I would say, is a little superpower. Like,
I mean, I have no delusions that Israel is somehow more impactful than Pakistan, definitely, or India, or like that. So that's not where I am. I'm just saying, if you're a regional power, generally, like in whatever region to whatever scale, if you make enemies of too many people, you're going down. That's just how things play out.
which is actually to bring us back to the Iran issue, right? That's what Iran has done over this past 4 months is they have pissed off every neighbor.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
And that's the thing. Like when Daniel came on, and I would love to have Daniel back when he can, because I really do want to talk to an intelligent person, but who cares about this stuff. But I have to say, like, the discussion we're having in the United States is so difficult. It's so outside the realm of anything that's I think is even like connected to reality, right? And excuse me. And frankly, what Daniel was saying, like, I don't think he's saying anything that isn't popular among large segments of the American population, but I also believe it's completely disconnected to the reality that is Israel and Middle East politics.
So,
Yeah.
so let me just add on to that, because I was talking about the 6-Day War and definitely I see Kirkhoff. The 6-Day War and its relation to now. So in the lead up to the 6-Day War, like the atmosphere was not boastful nor triumphant, right? Like the Habib Ardiu talks about it a lot. Like they were literally digging, the largest park in Tel Aviv into massive, like a graveyard to make room for all of the casualties we expected to have because of how dire the situation was. And that's like the thing that I find very disturbing, and the reason that I think like the right wing has strayed very far from reasonable policy in this regard is that they forgot how dangerous it is to be where we are and to piss too many people off. And like that to me is like, it's a real danger. And you could rattle the Purim rattler all day and say anti-Semitism, and like there is anti-Semitism, there has been anti-Semitism, and it's real. But if you don't find a way to keep good relations with enough allies and countries like that to have good that depend on you for things they actually need and would have good reason to stand by your side at a time of your need, then like I think you're screwed in the Middle East. And this is the kind of thing when I hear people, especially after October 7th, and saying like, oh, look at how the world is treating us. We should ignore them all and just take our vengeance and do whatever we want. And I'm not saying like Israel is like doing specifically worse things. I think Israel has done a lot of things that in terms of what actually happened in Gaza, there are a lot of things that people should be put to trial for at various ranks of the military and political system, including every single politician that directly promoted like or said things that amount to like there are no uninvolved parties in Gaza and we should flatten Gaza entirely. Like those do not be acceptable.
As much as I would like to see both Smotrich and Ben Gvir in prison, I don't think that's something that's I don't think that's legally feasible in a democracy. But
my point is more than like arguing the legalities. The point is I think that is extremely irresponsible and just not a great.
Oh yeah, it's irresponsible, and the fact. Look, if I got all the votes, right? If I got to say, okay, the Senate, the Knesset is going to have this many members and this many members from this party, right? The Smotrich and Ben Gvir, like they would have 2 seats. I think they need to have 2 seats. Like that entire faction needs to have 2 seats, right? And the 2 seats would not actually be occupied by either Smotrich or Ben Gvir, right? Both of whom would be expelled from the Knesset. That's if I were king of Israel. Guess what? I'm not king of Israel. If I were king of Israel, the prime minister would probably be from Shas. That's my thing, right? That's not going to happen either, right?
But I think like we're straying a bit. Like it's an interesting topic, but maybe.
But you once said something to me that I think is very very pertinent right now, and that is that there is on the Israeli right, there is a certain sort of messianism, which is very much a when prophecies fail type thing, where Israel is not living up to the dreams that they were hoping to, and they're doubling down.
Absolutely.
And it seems to me that there definitely are people in Israel, especially the ones who talk about, and part of the reason I pulled this up, right? Okay, so Tucker Carlson, when he was talking to the U.S. ambassador to the United States, to Israel, right? Huckabee started talking about the borders of Great Israel, which go from supposedly from the Nile to the Euphrates. So to understand what Nile to the Euphrates is, that's from Cairo to Basra. Okay, Cairo over here, right, is on the Nile, right? To Basra is actually, I mean, I guess it's a little beyond the Euphrates, but like this is the Euphrates, right? I believe. And like when you're talking like Israel's borders, like completely taking over all of Jordan, parts of Syria, parts of Cairo, parts of Lebanon, parts of Syria, parts of Iraq, parts of Saudi Arabia, right? Like that's
All of Kuwait, why not?
what?
All of Kuwait also, why not?
Why not? Yeah, like I'm sorry. No, I mean Euphrates and Tigris they meet, but whatever. The like that is such a delusional view that comes from not understanding like how large of an army it takes to occupy, to simply police a state that large, right? How many millions of people live in all those places? Like, yes, Greater Israel is an insane conspiracy theory. It is absolutely insane.
Yeah, and in Israel, when people say Greater Israel or Eretz Israel Shlema, like the whole Israel, they mean everything we have now plus what is called the West Bank.
That's Hashlema, right? But like that you've seen the patches that apparently some IDF soldiers were wearing of Greater Israel. You've heard about this?
I haven't seen those patches.
Oh my god! Oh my
so
god!
It's like literally from the
Nile to the Euphrates.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think that. I mean, there is no political significance.
It is insane.
It is insane. Like the fact that there are some insane people in every country is inevitable. But like, I think we have enough insanity within the actual like political movements in Israel that we don't need to like go to some random people who are just literally insane.
Okay, let's just be clear about this. Yasser Arafat was one of the first people to start pushing the Greater Israel idea. And in the Arab world, this Greater Israel idea is actually a live idea. Like there are definitely enemies of Israel who are afraid of Greater Israel. This fear is as real of a fear in Iran as the idea that the British are actually going to come and reoccupy Iran. Frankly, I mean that's the two are almost synonymous because they think of Israel as a British colony. Like there are definitely people who are afraid of this. And that's why it gets pushed as much as it does, and it gets the traction that it does, right? And yes, there are wackos, there are absolutely insane people in Israel who are like, well, why not from the Tigris to the Euphrates? And I mean, from the Nile to the Euphrates. But these are the exact same types of people who are like, yeah, you know what? The United States just needs to go occupy China. And guess what? Can you find people in the United States who are like, let's just take over China and Russia? Like, why aren't we conquering the entire world? We're the greatest. Nobody can beat us. We'll just nuke them, right? And it's like, oh my God, you've lost all of your minds. My dear friend Daniel, I would love to have more of a conversation with you because it sounds like you've really been going down the Candace Owens pipeline. And please, for the love of God, don't take anything Candace Owens says seriously. I love you, but like the fact you're asking this question is just like, oh my God, I love you, man. I love you, but like, yeah, that's just. Yeah, that question's off the thing. And this is the thing. I think here I am actually like trying to bring Americans back down to the ground of like, oh, what is actually happening in Iran? What is actually possibility of things happening in Israel in the Middle East, in the world, right? And like, I love Chazi, but I think he is doing somewhat of the doubling down that you talk about with things going insane. Questions to ponder. I will have you on, but first I want to have this discussion with Gilad, because I think it's really important, and Gilad has important things to say. But that's when I emphasize Israel's weakness, right? I am not saying Israel is about to be destroyed. I don't think it is. Thank God. I don't want to see it destroyed. At the same time, like, and frankly, the economy in Israel is so much better than it was 25 years ago when I was there. Things are going very well for Israel, much better than they were before, right? But like, this idea that Israel, China, and America are vying for, like the three global powers that are vying for control, like, that is insane.
Yeah, that is absolutely insane.
But a third of Americans would believe it.
Well, look, I don't mean to be offensive to Americans, but they're not great at the geography of things that are not in North America.
They're not great at the things at the geography of things that are in North America.
Sure, but like,
that's humanity. That's humanity.
Yeah, but like, I mean, famously, right? Like, Americans, like, they see the map of the U.S. every election, right? Like, they see what.
Do they? No. Okay,
I'm sure that they encounter memes about red and blue states, right? Like,
yes,
mostly, right? Like but like the size of Israel being like a capital, like the entire country of Israel is like a capital city in Europe. It's like a big city in the U.S. Like, it's not, like, it's a very small country. You can literally drive, edge to edge in like, I don't know, 6 hours, something like that. So, and that's like the longer edge, or the longer axis.
Israel at its thinnest is 12 miles wide.
Yeah.
12 miles wide. You can walk the entire width of the country in 3 hours.
People do it. There's like walking treks that people always do, just to walk they call it like on the width or the length.
It is the size of New Jersey. When you look at a U.S. map, there's a reason why New Jersey is written off of the map, right? When you look at a map of the United States, they have to have a line and it says New Jersey. You do the same thing with Israel. When you look at Israel, there's a line because the country isn't big enough to fit 5 letters. 6 letters. Israel is how many letters? 6 letters. 6 letters.
So, and in terms of population, right? Israel is about a population of 10 million. The U.S. has 550 million.
No. We're probably pushing 400 right now. 380 or so. Yeah.
Oh, so 400 million. Russia has also, I think, about 440 million.
Not
Ukraine
sure.
has about 40 million. Right?
Yeah.
And Israel has 10 million people. Amongst them, I think it's about 8 million Jews. In terms of Judaism, that's 0.2% of the world population, if you want to compare it to people's perceptions of 20%. That's the scale. And like you said, like, are we punching over our weight, like, for a 0.2% of the world population? Yeah, we can know more about Jews.
So Russia is 143 million.
143, right? Not 400.
Yeah.
I was, and Ukraine is 49.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's the size of a country. There's there's the economy of a country, there's the population of a country. Back to the whole Israel as a regional power thing, right? I think we can agree that, okay, the influence of Israel is the area of influence in which Israel is a regional power which can affect the politics of the countries here. And a little bit more broadly, I mean, I wouldn't even go this far, but like, yeah, that's the area where Israel is like one of the major players, right? But once you get to this level, right, like Israel isn't even in the top 10 of the most important countries. Certainly not. I mean, in order to understand how important a country is and how influential it is, ask people, okay, rank what is the most influential country in the world. And I'm guessing almost everybody will say United States number 1. Hopefully most people will say China number 2, right? Some people may or may not understand that the United Kingdom is number 3, or Russia, right? And then you talk about France, Brazil, maybe India, right?
Germany.
What?
Very important.
What?
Germany.
Yes, Germany is without an army, like it's an economic powerhouse, right? There's the same thing with Japan. South Africa is actually, punches above its weight, as does Kenya, right? Like, but like, once you're talking about after Pakistan and after, I mean, I'm trying to think which other country you probably should include. Maybe South Korea, maybe I don't know, Norway, right? Then you start talking about Israel as a second tier power. It's not a first tier power. Israel is not controlling the United States. This is like the fact people actually think there is a possibility of Israel controlling the United States. It is so insane to me.
But I think it's in that specific notion is more anti-Semitism, and I mean, let's say self-inflicted goals.
So Jan God brings an important thing. Look,
yeah, that's a good point.
If you're talking about religious influence, right? Let's take a look at this map from a question of religious influence, right? So if we're talking religious influence, by far the most important country in the world is right here. Where is it? There is by far the most important and powerful country in the world in terms of religious influence. By far, there's no question whatsoever about it. If anybody says, I mean, it's like United States is number 1 in terms of economic and military power. Here you go. This is the most influential like country in the world in terms of religious influence. Okay? And then probably I would say is India, right? Because they just have so many people, right? Al-Azhar in Egypt and Saudi Arabia's network of mosques all over the world, incredibly powerful. Russia with Kirill and Patriarch Kirill, the Eastern Orthodox are a huge denomination. People, it's a sleeping giant. People are not paying attention to. The Protestants in the United States are incredibly influential, and as a subset of that, there are about 50 million Christian Zionists in the world who are religiously very influential, so much so that I think they have a huge influence in Israel. I personally don't think without Christian Zionists, Ben Gvir and Smotrich would have as many seats as they do in the Knesset.
I mean, that makes sense. Generally, like the American, mostly right-wing Zionists are a radicalizing force on Israeli politics, I would say.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Jan God is absolutely right. The Anglican Communion is huge. And frankly, the fact that the Anglican Communion is falling apart is part of why Britain is losing so much of the things, right? Yeah. So, I mean, look, the idea of Jewish power is huge in people's imaginations, but it's so insanely wrong.
I just wanted to respond regarding both Yangad's question and Chezi from before, and then there was something else I wanted to discuss. So I think the notion of being allied to the nations is the way I see it when Chezi discusses it is not about like enforcement of power, right? And like the way, like, and this is something that I find, I don't know, cringe, I would say, that a lot of people, like Eric Weinstein included, say that Israel should teach the world, you know, all of the stuff that it does great, like having kids. And I'm like, I don't even know what that could mean. But like, you say, oh, you're above replacement rate, like you should preach to the world. And I don't know. I think the world's not listening, and I don't think they're like going to go like, let's ask the Jews, how do we, you know, in any case.
Okay, Gilad, I think you need to learn more world history because you realize that heteronormativity is the Jewish gift to the world. Before Christianity took Jewish sexual morals and spread it all over the world, like we were the only people who were like, no, actually, you should not rape men.
I mean, I am vaguely aware of those things. Like I'm not historically very savvy about it, like what exactly came when and which culture. But I know that like definitely Jewish morals had a lot of sexual morals within them, and a lot of it is very difficult for modern people to see without committing anachronisms. So like, you know, a lot of things seem like, you know, backwards, but they were very progressive for their time. All I'm trying to say is that to me, like that, whatever, you know, the Jews should be as allied to the nations is not about bombs and aircraft. But the question I wanted to ask a long time ago. So what do you think about Neil Ferguson's point regarding the Iran war, that the U.S. should have conducted like a military operation to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and that like the I don't know, risk aversion involved in avoiding that operation basically is what put the U.S. at a worse position in this negotiations and this deal and everything.
So Neil Ferguson is the one of the people I listen to try to get a contrary view because I very much respect him and his analysis. I do have to say, I think he is he understands world geopolitics very well. I don't think he is very well versed on the Middle East at all, unfortunately. But nobody can, right? My personal preference, and I've been saying this all along, and I don't know why this hasn't been more of a push. My personal preference would have been that the United States go to the United Nations and at least clear the way for to try to at least threaten to give Abu Musa to the UAE. The fact is, I think in war, you always have to ask yourself, what is your enemy most afraid of? And then threaten to do that which they are most afraid of. And in terms of actual military power, I was disappointed in Trump announcing and then renouncing the idea of trying to militarily clear the Strait of Hormuz. But at the same time, I don't think we could take over Qashm Island, much less take over actual, like, the land on, like, we can't even, the islands that are there, right? So we're looking at the Strait of Hormuz here, right? So this Qashm Island is it has about 170,000 inhabitants, if I remember correctly. Hormuz and Lorak, they're also actually inhabited islands, right? And this is Greater Tomb, right? And Lesser Tomb, and where's Abu Musa? There's Abu Musa, right? Like these three islands right here. The tombs are pretty much uninhabited. Abu Musa has several thousand people. Iran has been ethnically cleansing Abu Musa over the past 50 years. And they've been somewhat successful. But like there's very few number of people. We would have to not only take these islands, which I don't think we could, without significant ground troops, significant numbers of people dead. We would have to actually attack Iran's mainland. Now, are people in Iran actually saying, oh, the United States long term is definitely to take over Abu Musa, but also to take Qashm and to take Kharg, right? Nobody wants Kharg other than Iran. Nobody's willing to take Kharg. I don't even know if the UAE, with our help, would be able to keep Abu Musa and Homs. I think we should have threatened it. I think we should have gotten a UN resolution showing accepting UAE sovereignty. I think that would have been an actual offensive. And I think the fact that we failed to do that shows that the resistance, muqawama, as it's called in Arabic and to some extent in Farsi, right? The resistance that that they're actually fighting for, right? It is a, I wouldn't say it's a winning strategy, but it's a strategy that can be effective when you have nothing to lose and you're willing to lose your life and you have no military. And part of the problem, this is why I think if the deal comes out and there's sanctions relief, I won't be surprised. I will be disappointed. If there's actually unfreezing of assets, etc., I think that could be really, really bad, because the fact is, despite the fact that the resistance, the Muqawama, claims they don't care about economics, of course you care about economics. You have to pay your soldiers. You have to, even if drones are very cheap, you still have to build them. You still have to have parts. You still have to feed your people, etc., etc., etc. And that's why, like, Netanyahu was doing everything that he could on his side by attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon. And that seems to be what Trump has given Iran is, oh, well, Trump doesn't give a damn. Like, ultimately, he's like, oh, you all you're asking me to is for me to tell Israel not to attack Hezbollah? Sure. What do I care? Right? And that's why, I mean, I named the stream, what did Trump give Iran? I think Iran gave them Israel. And frankly, he doesn't care. Right? And to that degree, I understand if Israelis feel somewhat whatchamacallit, sold out, but like, I'm sorry, that's how I've always viewed Israel in relation to the United States. Israel is the United States cats in the Middle East. That's how I view it.
That's sure. There was still a point I wanted to ask about, specifically the Strait and that question, because I did hear an analyst, and I think it's harder to reach him. He's in a paid service, but his name is Afshan Ostavar, and his view is that the U.S. could definitely withstand like something like Operation Freedom, the thing that was on for a day and then stopped, or maybe continued in the shadows, or like not very clear. But his view is that the reason it stopped is because the response in escalation from Iran would be firing at the GCC states, and that was like the game that was being played there. That the reason the strait was not opened was not so much that it was difficult militarily to keep the shipping going, as much as it was the different escalation options.
That is one of the few explanations I find plausible. I'm not 100% sure about that explanation. I have a weird conspiracy theory of my own, which is Iran may have been, so the fact that Hormuz is leaking like a sieve is like it's just a fact, despite the fact that supposedly it's completely closed. Apparently, like, there's no way oil is as cheap as it is if Hormuz is absolutely actually closed. And I think there may be a possibility that what's been going on, and part of the reason Iraq and Kuwait haven't been screaming bloody murder, is that actually Iraq and Kuwait have been selling Iranian oil and shipping it through the strait. Like there's weird things like that going on as we're and that's I mean, I have zero proof of this, but if Iran is selling oil through Iraq and Kuwait, and I doubt Bahrain, but maybe Bahrain and Qatar, but I doubt it, but maybe, right? That might explain why the current situation isn't heating up as fast as I thought it would. Right. And I don't know. I really don't know. What I can tell you is Iran is cash starved.
That certainly seems to be the case, and that's why I think I would be surprised if the deal doesn't give them cash, because I think that's what they want, and I think that's what they strategically need, and I think that is why most Israelis. Now, I don't know where I stand on it. Honestly, I think it's complex, but I think most Israelis are feeling like, you have your foot on your enemy's throat, and now you're, giving them, a chance to recover. So that's the sense. Like, they're gonna get. Like, I don't see that this deal being signed by Iran if they're not getting cash. Despite whatever concessions they might, agree to in the short term, long term, they're gonna get cash. So I think that's
so, and that's why, specifically you, I would recommend do go ahead and listen to the episode of the Daily yesterday. It was only 20 minutes long, where I think David Sanger is his name, the New York Times, like, Trump called him and fed him the line Trump was going to feed, and Trump very much prides himself. I mean, I know why he called the New York Times, because he's like, oh, I'm gonna have them print, be my mouthpiece, and feel big about himself through that. I heard nothing about sanctions relief. I heard nothing about unfreezing of assets. All I heard about was Israel and Hormuz, to the degree that, and we'll find out on Friday. I mean, this has already been signed apparently on Sunday. Like, the text was set, and on Friday they're going to do the big reveal. And right now they're just leaking and trying to get people briefed and everybody on board so they can actually do it, right?
No, that makes sense. I'm just like, not to get into politics, but like, track record wise, Trump says lots of stuff, and I just like what's going to actually happen versus how he would spin it. And like, I don't know. And that's just, I just struggle to imagine Iran, like, even if they're desperate, the thing that they like, the one thing that they would be desperate for is not a ceasefire in Lebanon. It's cash for them. So I just
yes and no. So that's the. I'm sorry, Zeke. I would have pulled you up, but I really want to have this discussion. You are absolutely right, except that the hardcore IRGC sees Hezbollah as their brothers. Sees, like, it's almost like Israel making concessions for the Druze. Right? Like, can you imagine if Syria was seriously threatening, we're gonna wipe out the Druze population in Syria, right? And like, Bibi made some sort of concession. I can see the Israeli public being like, okay, Druze hostages are like Jewish hostages, right?
Yeah.
I don't think all of Iran feels that way about Hezbollah. The 10% of Iran that still sees the Ayatollah as the Rahbar, as the supreme leader, their base is more invested in Hezbollah, as these are our Shia brothers and sisters in the Muqawama, than even, I think, hardcore Israel nationalists. Like the Haredi population, they're not exactly too enamored with the Druze. They don't think about the Druze very often, right? I think the people who serve in the IDF, which is most of the Israeli population, they see the Druze as their brothers, right? There is a similar dynamic between Hezbollah and the IRGC.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Druze are definitely an integrated minority in Israeli society.
Yeah.
And when it's an integrated minority, and then it happened, when Jews in Syria were going through attacks by I don't remember exactly the different factions, but like some were supported by the government and weren't, etc. But Israel intervened, and then there was a ceasefire, etc. Like that, there's certainly whether it's because you see them as brothers or whether it's because you have political interest, it's a cause that brings Israel to the table. So I get what you mean in that regard, but I don't know, maybe.
We'll see. But when you came on a few days ago, you asked me what would make this a bad deal, and I said I think if there's cash involved, that's what would make. If there's no cash involved, I am going to be wondering why Iran was able to, that's the question. What did Trump give Iran? And the only thing I can see Trump giving Iran that I would be like, this is a mistake, is cash. Because that's the life.
One thing I thought about that, that maybe isn't sanctions or unfreezing assets, that I did see is people are reporting that it's immediate sales of the Iranian oil, like a waiver on the sanctions that they put on the entire shadow fleet, and I think that I don't see any way that doesn't happen. So
yeah, that probably. I mean, I could see that happening. If that's not included, I'm just gonna wonder really why Iran even what did Iran get, right? But I mean, we'll see what Mehr News, which is one of the official, unofficial, news services in Iran, what they put out was the United States and Israel are going to pay $300 billion in reparations to Iran for the damage that they did. Right? In addition to no sanctions and unfroze all of our assets, also the United States is going to give $300 billion to Iran. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think that would happen. I have one last question. I will need to go after. How would you say is the sentiment with the Iranian diaspora? Your family, your friends, people in the U.S. About the war, about the deal, about what's Iran's future.
So Morad Vaisi, who is probably the biggest mouthpiece of the monarchist movement that I listen to, he is referring to this memorandum of understanding as a taslim name, which literally means letter of surrender, right? He's saying, oh, this is 5D chess, and Bibi and Trump have this is the image he painted, literally was this is what that Iran has taken them by the throat and made them come to the negotiating table, and they're going to sign this taslim nameh, this order of surrender, and then he's going to throw them off the cliff. That's what that's how he's painting it. Like, I mean, this is kind of like when prophecy fails, in my opinion, right? They've been waiting for like Amu Bibi and Amu Trump and Amu Lindsay, right? Amu meaning uncle, to come and lift this Islamic regime off their necks, and they're like, oh, this is all part of the plan. I don't think this is all part of the plan, although I have to say there's a little bit more like hope in me that this is, you know, Bibi and Trump being like actually more wily than the stupid incompetence that a lot of the people are trying to paint them as. I don't think Bibi and Trump are completely incompetent.
I don't think that they're incompetent. I don't trust them, like in a very deep way. And I think like that in both cases, right, they could be more self-serving than I would like a political leader to be. And
I agree with you.
And so, like, I think Netanyahu generally is very competent at the things that he wishes to pursue, and that's been true his entire political career. And in the latest iteration of that, the things that he has wished to achieve are, in my view, extremely detrimental to the well-being of Israel. That's unrelated in this case to the war in Iran, but it is very related to what I think, you know, led up and then followed after October 7th. I think that, but that's.
It seems obvious to me that the prime minister who was prime minister when October 7th happened shouldn't be prime minister after October 7th happened. That is an obvious thing. Yoav disagrees. Chazi, I believe, disagrees. We'll see what percentage of the Israeli population disagrees. I will say that when it comes to the elections, you can't beat something with a nothing. An election where you're like, vote for us, we're not Bibi, especially when really like the we're not Bibi camp is, hey, we might actually bring a non-Zionist Arab Islamic party into the government, and no matter how much they deny it, nobody's going.
It's not about how much they deny it. It's just like that's just a funny way to frame it, considering that like the first person who like negotiated and brought him into the fold was Netanyahu. So like it's not the issue of how that element of politics of Ra'am specifically.
Hold on. Maybe you're telling me something I did not know, because I listen mostly to right-wing Israeli things. So Netanyahu had a coalition with an Arab government?
He didn't have a coalition. He was, when Bennett was prime minister with the support of Ram, like that government, what we call like the change government that changed nothing. Before Bennett had the negotiations with Ram, Netanyahu did those negotiations. Like he tried to form a coalition with Ram because Bennett and Lapid and everyone, they wouldn't have a coalition with Netanyahu. So that's where Netanyahu went, and that, like you could hear like the pundits saying how that would be a great thing. It wasn't like secret or anything. It was on the records and everything. So like Israeli politics, you gotta really be immersed in it to not fall into the bullshit because they're very good peddlers of bullshit. But
I believe you, but I also have to say only Nixon could go to China. I think if there's going to be an Arab party in Israeli government ever, the first time, just like I think the first female prime minister of the UK had to be a Tory, had to be Margaret Thatcher, right? I mean, it's not true. I would have said the same thing about the first black president. I thought the first black president was going to be Colin Powell or Condoleezza Rice because I thought it has to be a Republican. It can't be a Democrat. At the same time, I mean, we'll see how right or wrong I am. The more I hear about this Arab party being in coalition, especially if you're saying it's going to be in coalition and then that's going to allow you to ditch the Haredi parties. Ooh.
I mean, look, first of all, the model, there are a few things. If you want to talk about Israeli politics, which I'm not sure you do, but if you want to talk about Israeli politics, like one, it really depends on Arab turnout, which in turn depends on whether the Arab parties actually unite to a unified, to run like a unified list. It's called, I don't know how to call it, like a unified party for the elections. If that happens, that might actually significantly reduce the Arab participation. I know firsthand from my lab engineer who's Arab, which, like, in his view, and this is, I've heard it from a lot of other sources as well, the Arab politicians, he referred to them as a cancer, right? Like, they're connected to, like, the crime syndicates, they're related to, all sorts of...
They're corrupt. This is the Middle East. What's new?
And Ram, the reason that Ram was in the coalition, in the government, Ram is the one party that he and many others feel actually got some things, like what it's focusing on is getting some actual benefits for Arab Israelis for their, daily lives, and like that's what it's running on. Their platform is saying, like, let's, put aside our Palestinian brothers and actually improve our lives here. And I think for, like, both left-wing and right-wing, you can ask Chezi. Chezi is absolutely fine with Ram and with Mansour Abbas.
Really?
So,
I'm not surprised. Okay.
That's what he told me last time we talked about it. It was a while ago, but I'm pretty sure that hasn't changed.
I mean, that is definitely going to be something different if you have, and I mean, if you're telling me Netanyahu actually talked about having Ram in the coalition, like, that might be his, I mean, we call it an October surprise in the United States, right before the election. If Bibi decides to and is able to actually say, "Hey, I came to an agreement with Ram, and we're going to run together."
It's one of the scenarios.
That would be a very different scenario.
The election is very complex and unpredictable because there are so many different scenarios that could happen. One of them, by the way, is just health concern for Netanyahu himself. Like, there is a non-negligible chance that he, like, health-wise, will not be able to participate. Now, we don't really know.
He had cancer. He announced
he had cancer. He says he had cancer, but there are a lot of signs that he has cancer, and the level of lack of reporting on it is very suspicious in terms of, like, he has to do checkups, he's not doing them, doctors have been caught lying about it. So, like, there's a lot of different like things up in the air right now. So if Netanyahu eventually doesn't run, the most likely coalition would be just Bennett and the Likud, and that would be pretty much enough. Like you'd have all the left wingers and the right wingers voting right wing, and you just have like this right wing, without Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, but still very right wing. Like if they could do that, if there's no Netanyahu in the picture, and there's a lot of people who would love that for that exact reason, then they don't have to deal with, all sorts of different demands from these, pesky leftists that,
My fear.
It actually wants to take the education ministry and actually do something. So like there's a lot of stuff that would be much easier for like just a full right-wing government. Everyone from like Eisenkot and Bennett and Lapid and the Likud, they have no differences in actual platforms except we don't like corruption. So if Netanyahu is out of the picture, they're all in the same party.
My fear is that there will be election after election, and part of that fear is if nobody can make a coalition, Netanyahu will have a caretaker government until someone does. And I do not put it beyond Netanyahu to be like, well, if I can't be prime minister of Israel, no one can.
That is certainly one of the dreaded options. So, like, even with people on the left who are in political parties and trying to, convey optimism, the thing they're wishing for is that the opposition bloc can pull off a Hungary, and it could happen. Like, but they would actually, Netanyahu, like beating Netanyahu, like just by a bit, would be insufficient. There would be no government, basically. And even if there would be, it would be very difficult to do anything. But if you could get like a landslide and pull off what Magyar is doing in Hungary, that's what they're hoping to do, and to sort of really clean house on a lot of the nominations that.
I think that would be great. Okay, there's two people who've been waiting a long time. I will see you. I am going to put this short song on, and then I will have the other two guests on. Bye, people.
سر سنگ عقابی به هوا خواست آن در طلب تو مهپر و بال بیاراست بر راستی بال نظر کرد و چنین گفت امروز همه روی جهان زیر پر ماست بر بال عقاب آمدان تیر جگردوز عذب مرو را به سوی خاک فرو کاست چون نیک نگاه کرد و پر خویش برو دید گفت تازه که نالیم که از ماست که بر ماست از ماست که بر ماست از ماست که بر ماست.
We are back with questions to Ponder and Zeke, who waited very patiently, but I wanted to let the conversation with Gilad because I thought it interested me. But I do want to hear what you two have to say. I did not get to read all of the things you were saying at the time. But one of you has a kind of loud mic, though. So
is that me with the loud mic? Do you hear me?
Is it me? I don't know.
I think it's you, Zeke. Yeah. So when you're not talking, if you could yeah, if you could mute yourself when you're not talking, that would help a lot. Yeah, so what do you guys want to talk about? Questions to ponder has been waiting the longest, but Zeke has his camera on, so I don't know. We kind of do preference.
No, we cam up. We give first dibs to those who cam up. I understand. You got to give first dibs to those who cam up. Did you see that someone put, look at that baby face? Zeke. Zeke in the baby face. Aw.
So Zeke, what do you want to say?
Yeah. So I think this whole thing's very interesting. So my parents are, baby boomers. Interesting dynamic. Without going into my family history too much, with our connections to Christian Zionism, Judaism, as Jacob was talking about earlier, they're definitely strong in that camp. But we have a friend. Her name is Lori. She's an American Israeli who is also a Christian of sorts, but she's very, very, very pro-Israel, right? And so her and Dad have been sending voice messages back and forth because she's very perturbed by this recent set of circumstances, and she feels that Trump is being misled, and she feels that Trump wants to do the right thing, but because people are telling him he needs to make a deal with the Iranians, that he's just listening to them. And I don't know if she's referring to maybe his Lebanese, in-laws, maybe, or who. Not quite sure, but she seems to think that there are people in the administration that don't want what is best for Israel. And she also said, and I think it's funny because if you go on Twitter, especially like right-wing Twitter, the opposite would be said. But she said, well, Trump is so mean to Bibi. I don't know what Bibi did to him, but everything, he always wants him to tell him what he's doing or all these certain things. Like he's bending backwards over, like Bibi's done bend over backwards for him. Like, why is Trump so mean? And I'm thinking, if you told any Eastern Orthodox or any other people, those kind of folks, they would say the complete opposite, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
You bring up two things. So one, in terms of from the Zionist camp, when they talk about people who in the administration who don't, they mean JD Vance. I think there's a bit of an act going on where Marco Rubio is pretending to be unhappy, and JD Vance is being the Iran whisperer, good cop, bad cop, and Trump is in order to shore up his I see a lot of kayfabe here. I think it's all a lot of pro wrestling acting going on. I don't believe any of these people are sincere in any way, right? And I don't believe any of this stuff. That's why, for me, the question is, I know there's going to be a bunch of things in that deal that are going to be the United States promises that all of its allies will not be incredibly mindful of Iranian sovereignty and the integrity of its allies, right? They're going to say a lot of words. Words are wind. As they say in Farsi, harf mufte, which means the price of a word is zero, right? It's free, right? You can say whatever you want. It doesn't matter. The question is what's actually going to be done. And in my estimation, the most important thing is dollars. Where are the dollars going, right? The idea that the United States is going to write a check for $300 billion to Iran, yeah, that's not, no. If that happens, yes, Iran won. The United States was defeated. We are Iran's bitch. Everything, all the stupid things that everyone ever said, it's all true, right? Not going to happen. There are frozen Iranian assets, which, frankly, in a very JCPOA manner, he might unfreeze, right? That's JCPOA. That's being Iran's bitch the way Obama was, unfortunately, right? And I would be unhappy with that. I could see it maybe happening. What gives me hope is that I think Trump may actually be a little bit better than the Obama administration. And what they may have given is sanctions relief. I was very, very surprised to hear the New York Times correspondent did not mention sanctions relief at all. This is the week that Trump has to go around and make sanctions relief sound like it's not a huge deal. Be like, well, I mean, sanctions relief, these are sanctions we just put on them. Nobody cares. Right? The sanctions don't mean anything, right? You can sanction people, but whatever. Like Trump will spin shit, right? And the fact I am not seeing that sort of bullshit is kind of surprising, because I expected it, like, them to be trying to create some lube. You know what I mean? But they're not, which is already kind of surprising, right? And look, if we get out of this with just like Iran going back to how things were in February in terms of what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz and our relationship in, like, there's no nuclear deal. Iran still has the dust, the nuclear dust. They haven't agreed to any sort of inspections. There's nothing going on in terms of their ballistic missile program. There's because the nuclear triad, like, we talk about a nuclear weapon, but honestly, like, the question is the triad, right? Like, you have to have the bomb, you have to have the platform, and you have to have a delivery mechanism, right? So in terms of platforms, Iran doesn't have a platform at all, right? They have no navy, they have no air force, and so, like, they're kind of trying to skip the platform by having, okay, we'll have missiles that we can launch from our own land, right? Okay, you're already giving up on one part of the triad, but they're not looking to be a nuclear power. They're looking for a nuclear defense the way Pakistan is, right? So forget the platform. In terms of delivery, it's the missiles, and in terms of the bomb, let's face it, Iran is very close to getting a bomb. It's pretty much impossible to try. I mean, we've been keeping them back in extraordinary ways for many years. We may be able to keep them for some more years, but again, it's not very clear. But that's the nuclear stuff. We are where we are. And yeah, we haven't gotten them to capitulate. But the lifeblood, again, I have to stress this. Iran does not have enough water to get through the summer, certainly comfortably, right? We're in June right now, mid-June. They have to make it to September. And being blockaded is not helping. Right? Iran has to import food. Iran is not producing enough food. And again, water, the reason water is such a big deal is because water is how you make food. And the whole question goes in terms of, like, water, food, right? Iran, some of its agriculture goes towards money because Iran needs money, needs cash. And its major source of cash is oil, right? with all of that, right, the question becomes, where are they going to get cash? How are they going to pay their forces, etc.? They are being degraded. They are definitely being degraded. And so the real question is, are we actually going to let them have any cash? We will see. My surprise is I haven't seen any talk of actual cash that's real. And if that's true, regardless of all the spin and all the words and every piece of bullshit anybody says, Iran has won. Trump has won this. That's my belief.
Okay. Yeah, I know there's been some stuff floating around. Everybody says something on Twitter, and then you go read the community note, and it's like, oh, this isn't what it says. Like, because Newswire said that the Trump committed to full sanctions relief and $300 billion, but the source they quote is Al Arabia, and that's not quite what Al Arabia says apparently. So it's hard to tell. I know 25 billion was money that was unfrozen that they were going to unfreeze. So I guess that would be kind of what you were talking about earlier. Realistically, it seems like the Board of Peace, like with the whole Gaza Board of Peace, where everybody gives $1 billion, and he likes that kind of stuff, or maybe he talks the Gulf states into paying almost like a protection racket. They can pay to keep themselves safe, and then we kind of stay out of it. Who knows? But if the United States itself is writing a check, I do think that you're right, and we pretty much lost the war. I would argue in some ways we technically already have, and just in like some political meaning. Like what I think my parents' friend's Lori doesn't understand, or my parents don't understand, because they're like, oh, well, Trump knows that the Iranians, you can't trust the Iranians, and that they're just going to renege as soon as they sign the deal. So he just wants to bomb them. And I'm like, I don't think Trump actually wants to bomb them in the Stone Age. Otherwise he would have, right? Like we stopped. We don't really have the munitions. And allegedly, some people say we do, some people say don't, right? But I think it's summertime. It's the World Cup. Trump wants to be the good guy. Trump had his UFC event with all Nate Bargatze, all those other people, all the Pesavante, all the big shots came in, and he wants to be the cool kid on the block, and he wants Americans to have a summer. That's how I.
And the next one, and his team won the next one.
Yes, the next one. Yeah, next tape, baby. So yeah, he wants the people to be happy, right? Bread and circuses and all that. So if 4th of July is coming up, the big 250. He's having his big rally because he's the biggest speaker there is. Like nobody else just this bigger draw than Trump, obviously. So if the people aren't happy and they're rioting or whatever, or they're having a miserable time, not good for the midterms. I don't think Trump actually cares about the midterms, though, honestly. It seems like all his indications are he's pretty much said, Like here in South Carolina, the person he nominated, or he's supporting, Pamela Evitt, she's not doing well, and I don't think she's going to win the runoff for governor. And I just think at this point, he's like, you know what? I'm just phoning it in. I'll tell some people that I owe some favors or whatever that have been loyal. I'll give them some endorsements, send them a picture, but that's it. So I don't really know what he thinks or cares about. I don't know if he's playing 4-dimensional chess or if he's not playing 4-dimensional chess. I don't think he's stupid. I do think he understands the Middle East better than some people think. And that's why he's yelling at Bibi, because he knows you have to yell at Bibi. Otherwise, Bibi won't care or listen to you. But I also think I think he realizes Bibi is in a very tight spot.
It's kayfabe. It's kayfabe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Trump and Bibi leaking conversations where they're yelling at each other. And I'm supposed to take that seriously.
Remember, Trump's tired. Trump's old. He's still raising a teenager. His wife does not like him. His wife is insolent. He's tired. He's going to finish this term, try to do his best to keep his party ahead during midterms. But Trump's wrapping up. Trump's old. He's a grandfather, and he's probably about to be a great grandfather if you think about it, probably soon. And he's still raising a teenager. He's old dad. He doesn't, it's time he's really looking at wrapping up, but he wants this to be part of his legacy. And the whole situation in New York right now, the Knicks winning for the first time after 53 years, his entire city is bustling. Everyone is happy. Like it was mentioned, the World Cup. So FIFA is in the United States. We're entering summer. We're about to celebrate the 250th. He does not want this extending and going on. Jacob, neither do you. Zeke, you absolutely do not. We have stuff to do. We're all about to be grilling. We are all about to be grilling. It's already hot. It's summer. Like Trump's tired of this. Like
It's
we
so
try we
funny.
think
What-
about it, Jacob. Like the best explanation is the simplest explanation. And if you think about what I'm saying, you know
Yeah.
I'm correct. And you can add, all of you, including you in the chat, can add on to what I'm saying right now. Like
Yeah, you
not
look
just keep going.
from an American point of view. Like
Mhm.
I yes, I can keep on pulling up this map all day, all week. Like, but there's a
Right.
reason why 3 Year Letterman is one of my favorite accounts on Twitter, because with the deal, right? Maybe I should pull up the tweet, but like he did one of his breaking news, right? And he spells breaking BRAKING, right? Of course. And he talks about the Iran deal, and he had a shot of Iraq. Like this was what it showed, right? With the Iran deal. And like he's right. As far as Americans care, like you're going to tell me Iran, Iraq, like there's one letter difference, please. Like you expect me to keep these two countries, like they're right next to each other. What difference does it make? Right? Americans don't effing care. And they don't want to care. And they shouldn't want to care. And it's one of the things I love about America, right? Americans are like, you want to do stuff, like I might not agree with you. I don't care. Americans are not globalists. Most Americans don't even have a passport, which is surprising given that nowadays, even to go to Canada and Mexico, you need a passport. Most Americans still don't have a passport, meaning most Americans haven't even been to Mexico or Canada.
Absolutely not. Jacob, you know full well most Americans do not leave their state. The big travel is just leaving their state, and that's a whole new world. Going to California for a week. Most Americans, they're just saving to go to Vegas. Let's be real. I can do Vegas, and I'm tired. I'm done. I'm going back.
You know, it's absolutely true. It was when I sometimes I have gone to Vegas a few times, and like you see people who like this is the big trip of their life. But I wonder. I have to ask: have most Americans left their state? What is the average number of miles from their place of birth that most Americans have traveled? Because I thought most Americans have at least left their own state.
Well, if you are east of the Mississippi,
okay.
So if Jersey goes to New York dreads Jersey. They don't want to go there.
Okay,
if you're in Florida,
this is crazy. Listen to this. This is from Grok, right? No, most Americans have not left their birth state. In fact, a majority still live in the state where they were born. Recent U.S. Census data indicates that roughly 58% of Americans live in their birth state, meaning about 42% live in a different state. Okay? Average distance from place of birth, Americans tend to stay relatively close to home overall, despite perception of high mobility. Median distance to one's mother is only 18 miles. For young adults, 6 in 10 live within 10 miles of where they grew up, and 8 in 10 live within 100 miles of where they grew up. Visiting.
People do not leave like that. The hill country is nice. Texas hill country is nice. Most people are not going to leave. And then when most leave, they eventually go back home. Most really only leave like the Northeast because of high costs. But eventually, once people finish raising their children, New Yorkers always return back to New York. They don't leave, they don't stay out too long. Let me just raise these children. Let me go
So
back home.
okay,
California, same thing. They only leave because they're priced out. And if you think about it, those who actually have left, what state are they leaving? California has to leave, but within the past 30 years, they're priced out. New York has to leave. New York, they're priced out. Everyone else, no. So one thing it may be difficult to find are and once you remove the New York California equation, or even Massachusetts, they generally stay. Once you remove the New York California, how many people actually do leave? It's not that many. And a lot of people, they only leave to go to work. So you'll see people from Georgia driving to North Carolina, back and forth. People in Florida, Alabama, they'll drive into Georgia, but they'll go back home to Florida, Alabama. So people travel for work, but they generally do not leave. If you're, I don't like the Pacific Northwest, they don't really leave. Midwest, they don't really leave. But those who leave, they go into the southern states. But those who live into the southern states, they eventually will leave the South and then they'll return back home to their land of origin.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, they only leave for money. They'll save. Let me get out. Let me get out of Texas. Let me get out. Let me go back home. I'm just here for money, just to save.
your average American is not concerned about world affairs.
Mm-mm.
It's not. Yeah.
Jacob, the average American, you remember, many cannot read, Jacob. You do know that. Literacy levels are plummeting. Apparently, they've taken out phonics from reading, so these children cannot read, Jacob. And now they also that I do know they took out writing, like handwriting class. They took that out. Now they're looking to bring back handwriting because these children are illiterate. And then you add in, the pandemic. There is a reading crisis right now. So that there's more important things with this whole situation going on in the Middle East when most people do not even know, like, really what is the Middle East.
Yeah.
Like the only people who really think about the Middle East are generally going to be Christians. And then it returns back to do you remember that one question they were asking on social media? Like, how many times do you think about the Roman Empire? They were asking men, like, that's it gauges someone's knowledge, because if someone will tell you that answer, you have an idea, okay, they probably went to a good school, or at least a very, very good public school. They read, and more than likely they're going to be Christian. There's a good chance they grew up Christian or in a Christian household. Everyone else, no.
And for Christians, look, Israel looms large. They see the word Israel in their Bible. There's a recency bias. There's a confirmation bias. That's why, like, there's a lot of Americans who think of Israel as a world power. And it's like, I'm sorry, there is, like, Israel is not a world power. That's just ridiculous. And the idea that Israel, like, controls what the president of the United States does, like, you have, like, it is more sensible to say
No,
Keir Starmer and the British control. And here we go. Chazi is like,
Jacob, you had Netanyahu speaking before Congress not too long ago. People are going to view that. There's people like
he's not the first prime minister of another country to come speak to Congress.
Well, really? I bet no one. Who else within?
What are you talking about? The Queen of England, who has zero power
The
anywhere.
King of England. The King did, but
now the King.
Trump.
But like
the Trump. Okay, but that's different though. The United States and the United. Okay, first he came. There is a direct and definite relationship that the United States will always have with the UK. Like, the history is just too deep. Secondly, Trump's mother is a monarchist. Trump's mother's a monarchist. Trump himself really loves the royal family. The royal family is doing a lot to bridge relationships with the United States government and the UK government. Who's that PM there? Keir Starmer. I know Trump doesn't really like him, but Trump really, really adores the king and that ridiculous woman he has taken wife, Camilla. He really, really.
Okay, I
He's always been a fan of,
say-
and he adored Diana. He adored Diana.
I look,
Trump.
the
So,
King
yeah.
of England, the King of England.
I knew you were going to bring up King Charles, but that's really not a good example.
And why
It's not.
not? Bibi Netanyahu
No.
and the King of England,
No.
very similar amounts of
No,
power
they're not
in the world.
similar. Not in similar amount of power.
I'm
The king, the King of England, you're looking at a lineage, a tradition. That's the second oldest institution behind the Catholic Church.
I agree with you.
That's a millennia. And the English speaking countries fare the best. The
Hey.
Anglophile world has ruled the world for 500 years, has
The
not relented,
Commonwealth,
and we're all done well for it. And we've all done
The-
very, very
the
well. Brought the world
Commonwealth,
together.
the Anglican Communion, all of that stuff. You are absolutely right. Like
Anglophile,
the King of England and the President of Israel have very similar amounts of power in the world.
No, I wouldn't say that. No, Israel has, okay, so let's understand something. Israel, like you said, it's about the size of Jersey. Israel's influence is massive and important. They're number one for a country that grows nothing. They grow nothing. What Israel has done.
Israel
has
actually
created-
is an agricultural
grows
power.
what? I mean, but you're the size of Jersey. But it's the technology that
Garden
Israel
State.
brings. Is the Garden State like that? Like Jersey, like New Jersey's Garden State.
No, Israel. Funny enough,
Mhm.
is that, and I mean,
I know there's agri-tech. They've
I'm
brought
not- I'm not
agri-tech to
saying-
Africa. I've heard of that.
I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I
No,
have
I'm not
to say
Italian,
that
no.
there's a
Mhm.
lot of people. There's a lot of people who don't like Jews very much, who can never see Jews farming, and so they totally miss the Israel agricultural angle. Like Israel's tech, when people talk about Israel's tech, one of the large parts of Israel's tech is
Agri-tech.
agriculture.
Agri-tech. Yeah, agri-tech. Yes.
Yeah,
And they've spread that actually around the world. I know they brought that into certain parts of Africa. It's incredible, incredible. And they're going to bring that eventually into Iran, which will be fantastic. I know Iran does have some pretty solid arable juice farming. I know it has some pretty arable soil. And Israel will scale that. But what really Israel brings is technology, like medical technology. If it wasn't for Israel, like Meditech. I know there's this one company called Abbott. That's just one company of many. They've done so much that if it wasn't for Israel, you would then have to use like Russian technology, Russian Meditech, which is not as good as Israel. And behind Russia would be Iran, which is just not as good as the Russians. The Israeli technology is incredible. And I haven't even started Israel and cybersecurity. And that's what I do, Jacob. There's a company called No Name. Jacob, I was waiting for that company to go public. I was like, I cannot wait for this company to go public. I cannot. But then this whole situation happened, the 7th, and then eventually No Name. I think they were purchased by Akamai, which like for 500 million, which was a huge low ball. But all this craziness in the Middle East is disrupting, Israel doing what they do best, which is scale and export technology. I mean, they're the best. They're some of the best. Cybersecurity is number one. The number one export out of Israel is cybersecurity. No one does it like they do. And it's just absolutely incredible.
So
People
guys,
talk about what is this money that the United States gives Israel. No one talks about the amount of transaction. Like when we discuss transaction that's running on Israeli technology, the amount of transaction that's protected, not just credit card, but just like what is it called? Like TLS handshake, that has to be secured. That's also Israeli technology. They have some of the best, some of the best of the best. Like when
But
we're looking at as a service models, is Israeli companies who are the best.
I don't
On
want.
top of medical technology, on
Yeah,
top of some of the best oncologists in the world and pediatricians and their supportive women.
look, there are definitely a lot of good things about Israel. It is
Of
definitely
course, yes, I'm
one
Christian,
of
I'm
one of
Catholic.
the top second tier nations in the world, and yeah,
Mhm.
I highly recommend people visit. It's a beautiful land full
I
of
heard Tel
many.
Aviv is lit. The party city is lit. I heard
Well, let's not
clubbing.
talk about Tel Aviv. Um,
Is that? Do you have some stories that you don't want to share? What were you partying in
no,
the
I mean,
90s,
look,
Jacob?
I
Jacob in the early 2000s
no,
partying in
no, not at all, not at all. When I was in the early 2000s, when I was in Israel, we stayed we stayed away from Tel Aviv because Tel Aviv was like it's secular, and I was not in Israel in order to visit Las Vegas with Hebrew signage. Like that's not why I went to Israel, right? Like the fact that Tel Aviv looks so much like Berlin and has a very similar nightlife is not
It's
to me. It's
modern,
not
like Berlin. It's modern. It's a modern city like Berlin. Ibiza
it's
is beautiful. I've been. Ibiza is a party city. Love it. I've been to Ibiza.
I have not been to Ibiza.
You would enjoy it, Jacob. Like these are fun. These are fun party cities. And one thing, once there is greater Israel, which needs to happen, look at the level of stability that it's going to bring. Because you have to also look at Africa. I'm just being honest. What you have one civilization, these people, these Arabs, they don't bring stability. They treat their women like they're still transactions. This is a slaver society. Nobody wants to be honest about it. It
Okay.
is.
I,
It is.
at the risk of having to
Jacob, just tell the truth. You know they are a slaver society. While Israel has that modern sentiment, and Israel educates their women. When people bring up this, like the Jews are so smart, like, and they say it with that real shitty, and it kind of does come off very, and just in my opinion, like speaking bad. Oh, the Ashkenazi, they're so smart, like kind of like in that attitude, like they think they're better, or the Jews think they're better. The reason is because the Jews were technically the first to educate their women. When you really think about it, Jacob, they were the very first to scale and educate their women, to bring literacy to their women. You educate the woman, you educate the child. You are, and then bettering society. That is why they're so intelligent.
I don't know. I don't know if
No what,
Israel,
Jacob? No what?
if not Israel, but Jewish society. I mean, Israel's only
Mhm.
70 years old, but the
80 and some change. What is it? About 80?
yeah. I mean, the modern state of Israel. It's not
48? About
yeah
80?
yeah. I mean, it is not without its positive aspects, but like I mean, I don't know how much you've watched. I am not the biggest fan of Zionism. Let's put it that way.
But what
Actually,
does that mean, though? What is
okay,
that? Because it
yeah,
infers doubt, right to exist. That when you bring in that word right, that is questionable.
it
I
is.
just I don't get it. Just Israel
So
exists. It's not going anywhere. The country, this is a sovereign nation. Israel is not going anywhere. Like Israel is just
you
going to
listen?
disappear off the map. A
Do you
fallen
listen?
government.
Do you listen to Coleman Hughes? What do you think of Coleman Hughes?
Coleman, I mean, he's still young. He's still a little bit wet behind the ears. I
You
know
think
he's a
so?
musician, just a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of Bari Weiss and the Free Press. I'm not.
I'm not a fan of Barry.
No,
Well, I mean,
I'm not.
I don't mind Barry Weiss. I think the Free Press. I mean, I kind of take a bit of guilty pleasure in watching the people who hated her the most losing their minds. But so I like that, and the fact that she's going to take over CNN and she's firing all these people.
She has CBS, not CNN. She has CBS.
No, she has CBS now, but apparently they're taking over CNN now, and she's
No effing way.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. and the screaming, the screeching, it's just been so hilarious.
Yeah, Scott Pelley. That was a lot. Scott Pelley. I don't know about that one.
Okay.
That's a loss.
He's
a newsman. He's one of that last generation newsmen. Like Jennings. I love Peter Jennings. Jennings, Russer. Pelley's a newsman.
But Coleman Hughes, I mean, like, I would totally vote for him for president. I would totally vote for him for president, despite the fact he's way too liberal. He is incredibly intelligent. I've been following his career since when he was still in college.
Intelligence does not equal leadership. Don't ever forget that.
This is true.
You're intelligent doesn't mean that you're a leader.
You are absolutely but he also has rhetorical flair and a capacity to.
So he can debate and talk and chit chat. That's not enough to be United States president.
But that's necessary for being a good politician, right?
Yeah, but not when United States president. We don't necessarily need a politician to be United States president. Maybe VP.
I wouldn't say,
not U.S. president.
I wouldn't say like I would put him in the position without like. First of all, he's said, and most people it's quite likely that he wouldn't want to go into politics. But I think if he wanted to go into politics, I think he would make a great senator. That's for sure. I would love to see him in an appointed position. I am a huge fan.
Like maybe an executive position in the White House. Maybe an executive, as an advisor, that would be interesting.
I am a huge Coleman Hughes fan. I am.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I would rather the one that I know you're not. I know no one is going to agree with me on this. But it would not be surprising. It really would not to see Hunter Biden. Don't discount him. It just wouldn't be surprising.
Do not discount him. You are absolutely right.
Yeah, don't discount him.
Y'all have been on Twitter too much.
No. I don't do Twitter. I don't do social media. I don't do social media.
Okay.
Like I actually read books.
No. So
I don't do social media.
This is the thing. You have to realize political machines don't just go away.
Yeah.
Political machines
like
don't
energy, it never cease to destroy.
And the Clinton political machine is looking for and still trying to be relevant. They're looking for the person who's going to be the next Hillary Clinton for them to go over it. And the Biden political machine, the Obama political machine. Political machines are real, and I think the Biden political machine doesn't have anybody better than Hunter.
Yeah.
The reason why Hunter has been going on X and been mixing it up, I would not be surprised if he runs for office sometime soon.
As long as he can keep clean and behave himself and stop running around with women. But he can probably be disciplined. If he can really address his trauma and his demons, he can do it. And it would be kind of in that
and his daughter
W fashion.
His illegitimate daughter who's running around that nobody talks about. Randos United, I believe, is Jeff. Jeff hasn't been around in a while. Like Jeff, I don't know if we've spoken in the past 3 years. I've met Jeff in real life, so I really like Jeff. But back to your initial question, which I thought was very interesting. You first put it in the chat. What do you mean by Zionism? Right?
Yes.
That is an incredibly important question, and so one of the ways that I answer this is. If by Zionism you mean attaching religious significance to the modern state of Israel, I oppose Zionism. I am an anti-Zionist. If by Zionism you mean having special believing that the modern state of Israel deserves to be put on some sort of pedestal or some, I have some sort of loyalty to the modern state of Israel more than I do to any other country in the world, I would say I'm a non-Zionist. It's not like I have some sort of antipathy towards the modern state of Israel. Like I don't want to destroy them any more than I want to destroy, I don't know, China, like, right? But like I have family in Israel, but I also have family in Iran. I've been to Israel, but I've also been to Mexico, and so I would say in that manner, I'm not a Zionist, if that's what Zionism means to me, but I'm not opposed to it. If somebody else, like Chazi, lives in Israel and he loves it, and that's fine. I mean, I expect people in Mexico to love Mexico, and I expect people in Israel to love Israel, and I expect people in America to love America, right? But
Jacob, think politically. Think from a geopolitical standpoint.
Okay.
There is Israel.
Okay.
Like the whole Zionism, I guess everybody else, or it sounds to me just very like boomer talk, this continued discussion about Zionism. The facts are, Israel is a sovereign nation. There's a specific location. Israel is not dissolving. The government is not going to dissolve.
Right.
And like I said, there is a cultural significance in that region to Israel. This
is exactly what Coleman Hughes says. That's why I brought up Coleman Hughes. What you are saying.
That's my opinion. I mean, it's true though, but the most important is the geopolitical discussion. But there is also that cultural discussion, that cultural benefit. And it is, when you look at just for women, it is. And it's a forward movement, and it does better these individual societies when you do invest, promote, and teach your women to read. She's just more than a baby making factory. She's more than just a transaction.
I'm going to have to let Chazi destroy the stream with his rabid Zionism. How are you doing, Chazi?
I'm just gonna let questions to ponder keep pondering. She's doing great.
I just see it more as I don't know, like Zionism. To me, it's just boomer talk. There's nowhere to go. It's here. Let's just move forward. That's what I do. That's what I think is occurring right now. Is that once it is solidified that these groups that want to keep going back and forth as if we live in the year 2000, as if we're like 2,000, 3,000 years ago, accept the fact that this is a sovereign nation. It's a democratic sovereign nation. The country's not going anywhere. Like, just let go of, just accept this mentality so that we can move forward and the rest of the world can be at peace and at rest. There's part of the old world that is not developed because there are certain people that just refuse to accept that we are living in the 21st century. To even scream death to Israel, like, what the hell? Like, Jacob, this is ridiculous.
But that is the 21st century,
it's nonsensical. Like, death, look, what are you doing? You're going to death to a whole government, a sovereign nation? Like, it's not even a matter if Israel has a right to exist. Israel just exists. Just accept premise number one. There's no right. It is what it is. It's like that whole right, it opens up debate. And once you start debating, then you start questioning the existence. Like it infers doubt. Like that's how I see Zionism. It's like an inference of doubt. Like, where's the doubt? It's just, we're done. It's like, there's no doubt. It's just get over yourselves.
I'm trying to.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jacob. It's just boomer talk to me. I'll go on mute.
I agree with you. I'm running a poll. Chazi's stash, porn stash. Are you for or against Chazi looking like a porn star?
I want to mention that.
Why are you putting that Dirk Diggler-ness on Chazi right now? I'm sorry.
He put it on himself. He put it on himself.
Oh my God.
I'm thinking that.
It's like, no, what's his name again? That huge actor from back in the day? Like, everyone adored him. Like, you know what I'm talking about, Jacob? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you were a kid when he was in Boogie Nights. Like, he was like you know what I'm talking about. He was known for his mustache. Burt Burt Reynolds. Oh, and Tom Selleck. He had a hell of a mustache too.
Yeah,
and Tom Selleck.
Chezi
Yeah,
is
he's another one.
definitely going for the retro sexy man, you know.
There was a deep insight over here, which I think people need to realize that I don't think a Japanese man or a Chinese man wakes up in the morning and questions their right of their country to exist. The reason Jews themselves have a hard time with our country is because that was a choice that Abraham specifically made, right? Every day we have to choose that who we are and why we are what we are. And it wasn't obvious, right? Abraham could have said no. And I feel the tension that people feel, right? When people say like Israel shouldn't exist, at least this is what I feel. This is like a deeper sentiment, which has to do with, Israel sort of being the conscience of the world in a certain sense, or really Jewish people. It makes people feel extremely, extremely uncomfortable. And we've spoken about this a lot, about how Jews could either be Jesus or they could be Judas. There's really nothing in between. And that's why until we realize and take seriously the fact that we're a regional power, and until we take seriously all the good we could do for the world, and that's what we want to be doing. And Israel obviously fails tremendously in not promulgating and stressing that enough. But as Ponder was saying, correct, the dream is that in Iran we could share our tech, we could share our technology with them, so we could grow, so everyone could grow, so we could have that beautiful peace. And that is what I believe ultimately will happen. And it could be that we're going to go through a long about way, but and this goes back to the beginning of this conversation, Jacob, about what the West, and in this sense, Israel is related to that in some sense. What's the message we want to be sending to the world? There are people living in a completely backwards world, like Ponder was saying. However, I don't think we should abandon those people. Specifically in Israel, I think the responsibility is to help our Muslim brothers and sisters come into the 21st century. That's very scary for them, and that's very scary for us. And maybe we won't be successful, but I definitely think that while we, of course, should take our security very seriously, we should always be, at the very least, speaking in the language which is inviting, and people should recognize that all we want to do is bless the world.
Okay, Chelsea, for how long? And
it's Hezi, or you can say.
Oh, am I pronouncing his name incorrectly? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, how do I pronounce it? I'm saying Chelsea. How do I pronounce his name?
It's Hezi, but you can say Hezi if it's all right.
And I have friends who call me cheese. It's all good.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah, Hezi's fine. Yeah. So I have to say there are 17 people apparently watching this, and only 8 of them have voted on the porn stash. You guys need to actually vote on the stash, like and subscribe, because all of that. I'm kind of needling Hezi here because I love him, but this is where you become the most evangelical, Hezi. Like you like.
Just
I'm
do it with
sorry.
the Torah.
I don't believe that has anything to do with Torah.
Really?
Yes.
The
Really.
nations of the world, the families of the world will be blessed through you. It has nothing to do with Torah.
Blessing. Obviously, we as Jews should take responsibility to be a moral guide in the world. For example, by not
Just morality.
Chezi, by not placing, for example, the lives of our children in danger over some land. I think that's a huge mistake morally.
Even if it's the temple's built and it's all legit, right? Are you saying there's never allowed to be war in Judaism?
I am saying that that war is the last resort in
Sure, but
Judaism.
when it happens,
and
those kids
and
that die, would that be okay?
look, Chazi, that's why we look forward to a messianic era when there isn't war, right? And
Correct.
and
But-
that's why we're not Ola Choma, because we don't want there to be war.
How did King David have wars then? How did it happen?
Chazi, okay, you know my answers. You just refuse to actually think about them.
No, you could.
You've heard my answers. This is not a new thing.
I mean, it's always new to me if you say things like, if what you mean to say is that the current state of Israel that you don't believe in is risking people's lives, and that's why it's a problem, that's fine. But Jews not risking lives, that doesn't make sense, because Jews are okay with that in certain circumstances, correct?
Obviously.
Right. So the first thing you said was just
yeah, and the fact that some Jews are risking lives for land is
not for land, not for land.
Is I believe the opposite of being a light onto the nations.
Again, because of the context, as in because you think it's not there yet. Obviously, if someone thinks they're there yet, they would be correct, right?
No, they wouldn't be correct. If somebody thinks thinks they're there, this is exactly like Christianity. Like Christians telling me, "Oh, Jesus rules the world."
But I didn't say Messiah came yet.
Well, then there's nothing to talk about in regards to war or army service or anything
really?
Like that.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Eventually, when Messiah comes, because you also know this answer. Do you think they'll have to let people know using Wi-Fi? Which Wi-Fi are they using? Is it Israel's? Like, how are they doing that? How are they making a phone call?
Chazi, we've had this discussion. I'm actually much more interested. Gilad said that you would be happy to see. Is it Ra'am, the name of the Muslim?
The Muslim Brotherhood Party, actually.
Yeah, that you would be fine with them to be sitting in coalition?
Depends. It depends on well, first, let's take a step back. The only way forward is obviously if we're going to do it together. So of course, I hope that there's going to be a Arab party specifically, which I think Israel failed at. Ram, and specifically the head of the party, came out and said that Israel's a Jewish state and it needs to be recognized as such. Now, I don't know why that was not like echoed.
Earth-shattering news. Yeah, I mean, it is earth-shattering news.
Correct. So any attitude like that from Ishmael, of course, should be embraced by Isaac, and that is our job. Now, there's a separate question, which is, can the coalition depend specifically on that party? As in, can it be the 61? Does it bring it to 61? And then you have a question, which is security questions with regards to Israel, right? You're having an Arab party participate in that. Now, in theory, that should be a problem as long as that Arab party is Zionistic, which is why I don't have any problem with there being a Arab prime minister, as long as the goal is it's clearly the advancement of the Jewish state. Having said that, if there was a party that could have, like, if it could be like the 65th or the 70th, so of course it should be part of the coalition, but should we be dependent on it and they should have they should be the kingmaker? That is a little problematic, because while he specifically has seemingly saying the right things, there is still a big part of his party that's not there. And that's why that unfortunately still feeds a lot of the fears that the right in Israel has, because there's still too much rhetoric from those parties, which is extremely problematic. So it requires still a lot from them. Would I be happy for there to be an Arab party? Yes.
Wow. You heard it here first from a right-wing extremist.
No. No, but I would think any God-fearing Jew, that anyone that reads the Bible and is aware of what the prophets say knows that ultimately everyone is together on the mountain of Hashem. So if I need to be there together, I must. And more than that, it's even El Aqsa, right? People don't even realize this. The little gray dome, right? That's not even on the property of. That's not even on the area, the area of the Temple Mount. So that's why, even please God, when we have the temple, there's no reason for us to destroy El Aqsa. It should still be there. And when people are making their way up to the temple, they'll stop in for some hardcore monotheism by our Muslim brothers and sisters, and then they'll continue from there up to the temple. There's no reason, and they shouldn't be feared that we're going to knock it down either. We just want to all pray to Allah together.
Wow. Wow.
But Hezi, would you say that I feel like Ben Gvir, the religious Zionists, I don't think they would sit in coalition though with Mansour Abbas.
Religious Zionist party, you mean?
Yeah, yes, correct. Yeah,
'Cause
I know there's different like factions and stuff, right? But
Right.
what was left of Ben Gvir and Smotrich, I don't think they would sit with Abbas. That's what they pretty much said, right?
First of all, that's what Bibi said, but he also met with him, and that's what Bennett said, and Bennett had the
But
same.
Bibi's he's the ultimate survivor. I mean, I feel like if any politician in the 21st century,
Any politician is the survivor. That's their job. Also, they need a, but which is a problem. But do I think Smotrich and Ben Gvir? Ben Gvir, no. Ben Gvir is bad news bears. Smotrich. It depends what the coalition would be. I would say most probably not, but I would say they would definitely say they wouldn't. Do I think they might? Maybe they would. Ben Gvir wouldn't. Lieberman wouldn't. That's the biggest problem right now for the center, or because in the on the right they're saying no way are we going to do that, and their whole claim is like, look, that's what Bennett did, and he's a liar, and that's why you can't vote for him. But even if Bennett was succeeded, he needs Lieberman to succeed, and Lieberman already said that there's no way he's sitting with an Arab party. So in this cycle, I don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, he said one thing before, so I'm surprised he wouldn't do it again.
Post October 7th, you're looking at a very different Israel.
That's fair.
We have results to the poll. There were 15 votes. 53% said yes, 27% said no, and 20% said I don't care. So that's the poll.
I wish there was more people saying that they don't care.
It is what it is. Like that was the poll. That was the poll.
I was in Italy. I saw someone with a mustache again. I looked at my wife. I'm like, I'm doing it again. She's like, do your thing. And we got back, and I decided to go for it. And maybe in a week I'll get rid of it. We'll see.
What is different? What is different Israel? What is so like Netanyahu said, the 7th was Israel's at 9/11. And we all know how like the world changed. Like the 90s officially ended on 9/11. You know, like there's the world before 9/11. And then there's the world after 9/11, especially as an American. So, from an Israeli perspective, what is that difference between like how like the world has now ended, and the new world has begun? So, what is that new world? What does it look like?
In a few different vectors. One was that there was a realization to some in Israel, realizing that. That we can't just become little Switzerland in the Middle East. Like that's not going to happen. At least not yet. There was another realization. There's a great big awakening to the Jewish identity. And this happened, unfortunately, because of this devastating travesty of October 7th. But the fact that people realized that they were being killed and hunted, not for politically where they stood, just because they're Jews. And that woke up a very deep sentiment in all of Israel, where at least 30% of Israel has shown a major increase in spirituality. It's not necessarily, or like religious observance, but so there's been a great awakening on that end. People became obviously a lot more hawkish. with regards to the military. Unfortunately, there was a huge boon of unity in the first 3 to 4 months, which was incredible. Unfortunately, we've gone back to being starting fighting again, but that reminded us as Jews that we're more than, let's say, just that classic country. We are a family. Obviously, we want to be able to tap into that again, and we're having a very hard time. But that was a very big reminder as well of who we are. There also has been, unfortunately, a lot of there is the taste of vengefulness in the air still, and that is a problem. Because
how do you see that as a problem, Hezi? Vengefulness. How do you see that as a problem?
To be clear, I mean, we hear about vengeance in the Bible as well. So I'm not saying vengeance itself is problematic, but the way we are going to be treating prisoners, the way that we're going to be treating other Arab civilians in the country, the way we're dealing with other counterparts around us, we have to realize that while there's a tremendous amount of anger, we also have to show I'm not even saying like restraint, but we can't let that take over us. I'm saying I'm very okay with a harsh response, but it needs to be coming not from a place of vengeance. And that doesn't mean you can't be coming from a place of wanting to defend your people, but we're not here to punish. And that's tough.
Is the correct word retribution? Would that be a good word, retribution?
Maybe. It also really depends, like, who are the people in power. When I have no problem defending the quote unquote genocidal quotes that were taken out of context that prime ministers or different members of Knesset said. Having said that, like, as then I could say, like, no, there he wasn't talking about the Arabs, he was talking about Amalek, and here you guys misunderstood him. Having said that, I know, though, that when Ben-Gvir is using that kind of rhetoric, there is tremendous racial undertones under there. And it's a problem. It's I don't want my kid growing up with slogans like kill the Arabs. Even if that's being confused, like, I don't actually mean Arabs, I mean terrorists, but that's not going to be the way forward. I personally believed in an attitude which is you should be hitting with a heavy hand, and at the same time, we should be making it very clear to the people in Gaza that we will gladly build them any mosque that they need. We will gladly fund the imam that will come speak to them. And we like that on that end, that's not the problem. So we should be able to still attack while making sure that the Christians and the God-fearing Muslims that are in that area still feel valued and seen. But that's very, very hard to do. I understand.
I bring this up, Hezi, because I don't think I'm pretty sure you're not maybe too familiar with some of like the stories that are happening in the United States, but in Texas, and maybe you know about this, Jacob, maybe you know about this, Zeke, there was a situation where a teenager stabbed another teenager. And it has, oh, you heard about it, Jacob?
Yeah,
So
it's been
it's
very
pretty,
big on Twitter, especially among
yeah.
people who believe that the United States is racist against whites.
Yeah. So I bring this up because the situation in and of itself, Hezi, was not racially motivated. It was more like a high school team, like opposing high school teams. And one football player, like American football, wanted another person from another team to just like leave like the team's tent. And it just escalated. But what happened is that it's now been like reduced to race. It's been like completely reduced to race because the Black teenager stabbed the white teenager. So what was like a situation, but the thing is that even in court, Jacob, they only brought up like their high school, like, oh, it was a Centennial kid, that kid from Centennial, we wanted him to move, he didn't want to leave. They never brought up like his race. And even on the other high school, like the other high school both of these schools, one school is like a very, very small Black population. And then the other high school has like 20%, which is more than like the ratio in the United States, because ratio is like 14%. I bring that up because it's like this old age, this adage is just never going to go away. I know. Texas is Thunder. It's a huge state. It's like a 3-day drive. It's huge, Jacob. But like it will never go away, Hezi. Like it will never go away.
I don't think that's true. I don't think it is true that it will never go away, because I don't know how old you are. I am about to turn 49. When I was in the 90s, race relations in the United States were a lot better than they are, like, even during the Rodney King riots, right? Race relations were a lot better, I believe, than they have been since that. And I think what happened with President Obama was a lot of people, especially conservatives and white people in the United States, thought that this was a racial reckoning of sorts, where we could kind of try to put race behind us. And there was, I think, a kind of overcorrection where people were saying, no, it's not good enough, and we have to push the envelope more towards it's not good enough not to be racist. You have to be anti-racist. And I think there is a bit of a backlash to that. But that's because when you compare racism in the United States to the rest of the world, I can say quite emphatically, while it's not perfect in the United States, it is so much worse in every other place in the entire world.
Oh, I agree with you, Jacob. That was kind of my pushback regarding Brazil, because they're too much of a race-based society that they're never going to be like a world player in any regards, except natural resource.
So is India, so is China. China is incredibly racist.
Jacob,
but China is a homogeneous society, though. But the Chinese society, like arguably as old as the Jews. I mean, I think like over 3,000. China, as we know it, is like 3,000 years old.
Yeah.
So that's an old world culture. When we're looking at Israel, the Jews, old world culture. India, old world culture.
Israel is quite diverse, though. I mean, there's definitely racism in Israel, but like between Ethiopian Jews and Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardi Jews, like in Israel, I'm not saying that there wasn't racism.
And the Druze and the Israeli Arabs, right? Look, Israel is,
but those are old again. But those are old world cultures. You don't see like the Americas is like ethnogenesis. You have all these new ethnicities like Hispanic, which is a mestizo blended. And they're based off racism. They put color and race above everything. The United States and they have a different colonial history. The United States.
They're definitely. I mean, so slavery was far more brutal in Brazil, and it was I mean, Brazil's history. The thing is, Brazil. There's a reason why BRICS includes Brazil. Brazil has a ton of natural resources,
which we know,
very large population, and I think when it comes to South America as a continent, as a leader, I think
they lack.
Brazil.
They lack.
It is, but but I think Brazil. I certainly think racism is a big problem they have. I don't I don't know if it's going to hold them back more than
It already is.
more than the racism in India and China is holding them back.
I respectfully disagree because India and China, we've already seen the difference. Because first, the Indians and Chinese do very well in the United States. They do. They do very, very well. The Asians are doing exceptionally well. Even with this example I gave, the high school football example I gave, that city where this whole situation occurred with those two teenagers, their population is about 40% Asian. India and the Chinese, like those two groups.
Zeke has
Exceptionally
something
well.
to say about all this. Zeke, what
Okay.
what are you gonna say?
So first off, this also assumes I sound crazy, but we're assuming that racism is like inherently always bad, which I know is once again big bad thing to say. And I understand. Okay, first off, skin color here. I am of multiple races here, right? So it's not like I'm from some like white Anglo-Saxon person saying this, right? Like my parents, my mom is Jamaican, dad's Italian American, right? So pretty blended family. I've seen a lot of different aspects of racism in my time in Jersey, South Carolina, etc. When we're talking about racism, like Brazil, for example, we have a lot of Brazilians here in South Carolina. They work at BMW plant. The Brazilian racism is very different than the Chinese and Indian racism, where that's more caste-based. And I also disagree with China being a 3,000-year-old culture because it's not contiguous, right? The Chinese era in the CCP era is not the same China under the Manchus and all the king. Those are all
we know
completely
that.
different cultures. But
We
it's
know
important
that.
to say that because
But
they always
it
say
is-
that
it-
they're a 3,000-year-old
but-
culture, and it's not true.
Yeah, but Matt, I'm not. Yes, you're absolutely correct. But when you're looking at China, China is a very, very old society. You can say like the government, their leadership, etc., their defense. You know, the last iteration before this iteration was like Mao China, Mao's China, Red China. Yeah, and then before then it continued. But it is a very old ethnicity, culture, society. They are.
Well,
in
it's
some
just
ways,
like-
hold on,
but it's
hold on.
blended.
This is the thing. This is part of
Aren't
the
they
reason.
like they're like
why-
95%
Hold on.
Han?
Hold on. Okay, don't make me
Oh.
mute you.
Okay.
There's a reason why I keep on pointing to the racism in China and India, because it is institutionalized and it has been for hundreds, if not thousands of years, right? If you are Han Chinese, it's very different from being other types of Chinese. And if you are a part of the
We're the
Brahmin
majority.
in India, and frankly, those ethnicities in those countries function very similarly to how race functions in the United States. I would say there is every bit as much Jim Crow as there was in the United States in the 1960s, based on caste in India and on ethnicity and language in China. Now, I'm no expert on China and India by far, but from what I understand, like, you're still talking about a very Jim Crow South type society where certain people from certain castes and certain ethnicities in Chinese and Indian culture need not apply to jobs, need not apply to universities, need not. And anytime you do that, when you refuse to even allow people to compete. Now, I'm more
Which
of
is
a
Brazil.
person.
Brazil, big
And-
time.
And endogamous groups are real, and there's genetic characteristics to endogamous groups. And frankly, I think I say this often. The Jews as a group are endogamous, and if it wasn't something that the Bible required of us, I would say that it's a bad thing. And I don't understand why the Bible requires it of us. And I, in certain ways, from a materialistic and worldly sense, disagree with it. I think it actually hurts us, right? To be endogamous the way we are. I think actually being more open than Judaism advocates in terms of recruiting might actually be, by the ways of the world and as we understand the world, a better thing, right? But the Bible is what it is. Go ahead, Fezzi.
First off, I believe we're in the age where we could start recruiting right now. That's number one. Reverend Shirky believes in that as well, which is like, now I don't feel so bad evangelizing so much anymore about Judaism. Number two.
Are you talking about like proselytizing, like Jews, like actually like proselytizing, like Christians?
They used to.
I mean, listen, it's something so foreign to us. So like, it's not like it's not like something that I'm pursuing right now. However, definitely over the years, like at least my involvement with, let's say, Noahides and my conversation also with Christians, I don't think I need if someone seems to be very interested in Judaism, I don't think at this day and age I need to be as standoffish, basically, when it comes to if someone really wants to participate, or at least very much, explaining why I think what we're doing and the theology behind Judaism. So I don't think we need to be hiding that anymore. There's been many, many, many years and very good reasons for us not to be proselytizing. Many reasons also to keep our head down. I just think we're in a different reality today. But that was really like a side point. Jacob, obviously I don't wash the Kohanim's hands, right? It's different castes, right? I'm pretty racist about that. I'm not gonna, even though we're come from the same tribe. I do see in Israel something that's nice that a lot of people talk about, which is that slowly but surely, there's a lot of intermarriage within the Jewish communities. So like a lot of Sephardi Jews are marrying Ashkenazi Jews, and slowly but surely, the colors are turning into like one beautiful mocha blend, very much like Zeke over here. And I think that's fantastic. I think that is beautiful. Having said that, as we learned from last week's portion with Korach, hierarchy in this world is something that is very, very difficult. There's a beautiful story that I'll share quickly. In the Talmud, whatever tractate, doesn't matter right now. In the Talmud, there's a discussion about the moon and the sun. And it's in reference to the greater and lesser luminaries that God builds. And the discussion is, it says, the Midrash says, that the moon and the sun were the same size. And the moon comes to God and says, you can't have two kings with one crown. And God says, you're right. You should lessen yourself. And the moon says, like, what are you talking about? Why are you coming out at me? I was just a messenger. I was just letting you know what the reality is. Why am I getting punished? And God gives this answer, says, you're not going to be punished. Don't worry. There's going to be many people that are named after you. And the moon is not happy with this. And at some point, God says, listen, the people of Israel will bring a sin offering on my behalf because I wronged you, so to speak, but this is the reality I need. And I think this is a very deep teaching that our rabbis were trying to convey, which is hierarchy is built in to the system. And if all of us were the same, obviously it would be static. There would be no difference. I wouldn't be able to ascend if we're all in the same place. And this hierarchy feels very uncomfortable sometimes, that there are differences between people, that there are differences between races. We don't have to be scared of that. We don't have to be stressing that all the time, but we have to understand that that's part of the reality that we have in this world. Now, I'll end this by saying, because on a race issue, when people throw around the term the chosen people with regards to Israel, chosenness doesn't mean, specifically in Hebrew, it doesn't mean that we're better than other people. It means that we have a specific responsibility that's relevant for us, and we're chosen in that way. Every nation is chosen in its own way. Israel hopes the blessing it's supposed to do is supposed to model what it looks like reaching her potential, so that Germany, Spain, America, all these countries and all these people could reach their chosenness and then shine beautifully as well. And in their lane, their chosenness might be something that we Jews also can't do. But that's part of us being one of the bigger tapestry. So someone asked me here, what's ethical racism? I don't know if it's ethical racism, but realizing that hierarchy is part of our world is something that is very much needed, that people should open their eyes onto, because Nietzsche famously said that is why he also killed God, right? He says that it creates a tremendous amount of frustration knowing that there's a God that's perfect and we humans are not perfect and we'll never be able to reach, close that gap. But that, that's just ignoring reality.
It's not necessarily, like ethical racism, which does come off very oxymoronic, but it's not. I completely see, Hezi, where you're coming from in regards to hierarchy, but it really just goes back to difference and exclusion, and that in and of itself, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
So
there
I would,
are, yes,
yeah. So I would say, in terms of ethical racism, this is a concept I've talked about in other parts of the corner, but the idea isn't that we should denigrate each other for our differences, but that we should celebrate and highlight our differences, right? So, like in regards to like Brazil, yes, there are racial gradations, which in some ways can be very unethical, and obviously people can get criticized for things. But it's also very beautiful to understand what makes us different, because humans are obviously created to be in some ways tribal, right? Without going too metaphysical into ideas of like essential and accidental, all these different things. But part of humans' essence is, at least in the Aquinas view, is we are animal, right? So we have that tribalness about us. And so when you try to erase that entirely, it doesn't really work. So like I said, Mom is from Jamaica. In Jamaica, you have all different types of people, and they're still their own individual people, but they're all Jamaicans. But they're still like, Chinese Jamaicans, and they'll speak the patois, and you'll see a person and it's just like, that man should not sound like a Jamaican person, right? Because you have an idea of Bob Marley in your head. And then you see a guy that doesn't look like Bob Marley talking like that, right? You have Jews in Jamaica. You have all different types of people in Jamaica, right? And they all kind of comes this beautiful blend. But they do retain their own unique differences, right? And I think that works better than Lebanon, where in Lebanon, they have this sort of multiculturalism, but it's very segregated. And they try to make it work in some ways. And of course, I know some people talk about the failure of secular Arab identity in the wake of Gamal Nasser of the 1950s, Pan-Arabism, where mostly a Christian Arab-led or secular Arab-led endeavor, Ba'athist Party and everything, didn't work because they couldn't at the end of the day be honest, right? Because certain groups within the coalition were never going to share power, right? And so once they saw other groups in that kind of power structure, they were unhappy, right? So like when Hezi talks about a potential Arab being prime minister, right? At least in Israel, I'm not going to speak for him because obviously he knows Israel better than I do, but you have plenty of groups and they have their different differences and they all kind of recognize that. And it would be unfair to say, the Arab Christian is the same as the Arab Muslim or as the same as the Druze. And even though they might superficially
but that's what
look
makes
the same,
Israel very
different.
unique, Zeke. But that's what makes Israel very, very unique. That is just not going to happen in Brazil.
It can happen in Brazil.
Hezi, I'm assuming you are in. Oh, wait, never mind. Don't tell me your location. For
I'm in
your
Israel.
security.
I'm not worried about doxing myself. Don't worry. I'm here.
Okay.
They're trying to shoot missiles on me. I'm not worried about doxing myself.
Hezi is a very, very famous person.
I'm not.
I like when you said and you were in in my opinion, I believe you're very sincere, like an Arab prime minister. Like you were just saying things that you recognize the differences and that you want all of those who come from the differences, who hail from the differences, that in its totality encompasses Israel and hopefully greater Israel, like really Israel extending its borders. Like I just don't see that mentality in Brazil. Like a lot of when you're looking at the population, their demographics in Brazil, and a lot of I'm just being very honest with you, like with Latin America, their want is so based off race and color. They will put that it's borderline idolatry, race, color before culture, before intelligence, before production, before someone's ability. So like you're just like, okay, so wrapping up, I just don't see like how in Brazil they would elect someone like from northern Brazil who looks black African. Like Brazil is pretty black, like West Africa black. Like they're not even honest with their own population and demographics. And a lot of Latin America is like that. And which that's their situation. But when they try to bring that into the United States, it just doesn't work. So many of them become very frustrated when they're thinking that their racial idolatry is going to somehow bring riches, or like this expectation that you're deserving of some, like you're deserving of a job, you're deserving of wealth, of asset, simply because you look a particular fashion that you're not. Like whiteness, blackness, and like, in their mestizo class in Brazil, it's very, very, very different in the United States. Like, these are two different colonizers, like the English and the Dutch in North America, and then like the Iberian in South America, Latin America. And we see the present, but when they're coming here, like it just feeds into the racism that's already a problem here. And I just like personally see like Hezi, how someone who's like a Palestinian Arab is just not going to have the same mentality you have, where everyone just moves forward. There's so much wealth, there's so much to go around. We want everyone to enjoy like what we have in peace. In peace. I just don't see how this other group at all has wants peace. I'm just being honest with you, because there's been so much money given to them. They don't want to build infrastructure. They would rather just be destructive. They do not want peace. They made it clear. And you're a fairly young guy, and you're speaking how I've heard other young Israelis speak, like where it's not like us versus them. It's we can all come together in peace and all be awesome and do what we want to do. Like
So
I'm just kind of just
I
telling you how
understand.
it is
So
here. Right.
I'll put some things into context. I'll be turning 40 soon. I have two uncles and a cousin that was murdered by terrorists. And I was very, I was active in politics for a while, long time ago. And I was also, unfortunately, got to partake in many, many funerals, and got on a bus, got off a bus, the bus blew up. So the reality is, I'm very aware of the reality. However, having said that, I cannot ignore the fact that when 1967 occurred, there's nothing more biblical than, Hebron and all, what people call the West Bank or Judea and Samaria. And the other thing that the Bible stresses constantly is the widow, the foreigner, and the orphan. And the fact that after 2,000 years, we come back to a land that in it, the inhabitants are, I have to deal with this other people living over there. And they also happen to be my theological cousins. That's not I don't see that as a mistake. I see that as a tremendous mission and responsibility. One that I also think, this intractable problem, if it can be solved, I think that also would give a tremendous amount of hope to the world as well. And that's why it behooves us not to give up. It doesn't mean I'm not walking around saying I want peace tomorrow. And honestly, the only way that could happen is, right now I have a problem where I have a 13-year-old terrorist running after me. Of course, he's going to have to be stopped, right? And that's horrible. However, I don't believe that 13-year-old boy is evil. I think he's possessed by evil. And the only way that could be rooted out is by, and this might sound extreme, but people have to realize what happened in Japan post-war, right? Students had to open up their school books and take a permanent marker and go line by line and cross out the things that were problematic. So the only way that could happen, and I don't want to sound like the white man colonizing the Arab, and that's why I go back to this idea of which is I want to offer building mosques, I want to offer financing imams, but the message they should be giving is if you are interested in an Islam of peace, if you're interested in reform of some sort, then that's what could be accepted. Now, in that kind of system, after a generation, maybe 15 years or 20 years, then I could be speaking to a population which could be more open-minded. It is very, very difficult. And it might not happen, but I think at the very least, this should be the language that is used. If I need to fight, then I'm going to fight. And if I need to defend myself, that's also going to happen. However, I'm constantly hoping that just like we see in the Bible, that eventually Ishmael and Isaac bury their father together, so too this could happen here. And I understand that it might sound naive, and I have no illusions of that happening tomorrow, but I do believe that the only way forward is us recognizing the trauma that the Palestinians, whatever that term means, have gone through when we came to this country, and we can't ignore that.
That's true. Yes, Cassie, but are they whatever a
They can't now.
Palestinian is, are they willing finally? You have to move forward. I'm being very honest with you. The fact that the 7th even occurred in a post 9/11 world is baffling. It is baffling for something like this to occur now after 20 some odd years after 9/11. It speaks volumes about the mentality of a certain group that clearly is never going to accept peace. Some people just want problems.
But
They do. They just want problems.
You're talking about them as a universal,
Mhm.
though. Like you can't. I mean, obviously, full respect to Hezi and everything. He's not every Israeli doesn't think like that, right? There's a million different views in Israel, and I feel like post Second Intifada, a lot has changed in the Israeli mainstream. I think that's fair to say in terms of in terms of peace and reconciliation. But I don't think it's entirely fair to say that all Palestinians are of one mind or one idea, because you have multiple different groups within it's there's a lot of
70%.
Sure, that's fair. Yeah.
And Zeke, look
That's
who
a
they
problem.
go after. Look who they go after. Like I've noticed that it's never like men, young military men. That's what really, really gets me. You're always going after like women and children. And I've been seeing this, like I've been noticing this since high school. It's always women and children. Like I'm seeing a car, and like the car looks like the type of a car that I would drive, or like a friend of mine would drive. Like a little white Toyota. And then you're seeing in the interior of the car blown up, and it's like Hello Kitty. It's like that really got me when I saw that, like Hello Kitty. Like this was probably like a teenage girl or a girl in her 20s in college living at home with her family, and she goes through this when an Ethiopian kindergartner with her backpack was waiting at the street, and then she was unalived, like a kindergartner. Like there's always, every time I hear
You can
story
also
after
point
story
to the
after
settlers,
story.
of course, in terms of the West Bank. I mean, I know it's not the same. I'm not equivocating, but I'm saying
So
there
why
is
mention
violence
it?
on both sides. But I'm saying it's not
But
entirely
but you
perfect.
are, Zeke. Like
I'm not
the
entirely
difference
equivocating.
between murdering people and
Of course.
being violent, horrible people is huge. Okay,
course.
I actually have to go. There's going to be Parsha. So Ben and I we've changed it to 2 p.m. So in 20 minutes that we're gonna have Parsha. But you guys can keep on going. Chezi and Yoav are both rabbis of high quality who can lead this discussion. And there's a lot of people watching. So you guys have fun. I will see you later.
It's nothing. It's just Zeke. I'm sorry, Zeke. It's just like I guess maybe because I am a woman, it just breaks my heart that in such a like this modern society, like you're seeing like like women kind of like do their thing out and about, and you're expecting the modern world, and that it's constantly attacked. And it's always like women and children. Like it's just always women and children. I don't want to see this type of behavior. I think there's a little bit more of a separation when you're seeing things like this happen in Afghanistan in a village that we would in the West say backwards. We want that village to modernize, but it's not surprising when we see that behavior in that particular area. The expectation is that, like in Afghanistan and parts of Africa, and other parts of the Middle East, we're expecting these other countries, these other societies to mature and grow, embrace modernity.
That's
Like
very
those societies have not embraced modernity. But if I'm looking at Israel and I'm seeing all this, okay, this is modern world. Israel's modern world. All right, modern world. And then I'm watching a woman like that, what happened on the 7th, this woman who looked like she just woke up, probably did some Pilates, went to grab some coffee, and then she's just kidnapped, handcuffed, her sweatpants bloody. Like, it's just like, oh my gosh.
right,
I'm
but
seeing like a
but
woman, you know, okay, yeah, I'm
but we
sorry.
can't. We have to be sensitive to the fact that in Islam, for example, I think it's like the last 400 years or 500 years, they're no longer participating with ijtihad, which means to reform their texts. They're locked. I mean, like, it's not an excuse. It's just, and again, this goes back to what I think Christians and Jews both could offer Muslims, but they are locked in a theology that is you know, it is still very much in the past, and until that reform happens, it's going to be extremely difficult to move forward. Now, you could see that happening in Saudi Arabia and happening in some other countries that are trying to make some moves like this, and obviously the Abraham Accords and things like that. Those all give me hope. You're right that it's you know, it's not easy, right? If we have 1 billion Arab Muslims in the world, out of those 1 billion, roughly, if we're being conservative, according to Pew Research, I'd say only 10% are radical. That's a problem for the world, having 100 million radical Muslims, obviously. And if you have another 30 to 20% that won't act that way, but support those radical behavior, then you're talking about, you know, hundreds of millions of people. So it is very much a world problem. And I believe Sam Harris has been going on about this for, I don't know, 1,000 years. But I don't know what to tell you, Ponder. I'm a chronic optimist.
Oh,
If I
great.
can
Just
put,
hopefully. Oh, hello, Yoav.
yeah,
I'll go and
hi.
mute.
I put my small contribution into the discussion.
Please,
The discussion was the individual Arab against the group. And the group is a system. And you have to understand the dynamics of the system. And maybe that system can be broken into smaller parts, and maybe you can handle it part by part. Maybe the individual is not the right level to address a problem. Case in point, what was happening in 1948. At that time, the Arab society was divided into villages. Every village had its elders, and they took their political decision by themselves. And some Arab villages decided to accept the idea of a Jewish state and join it. And some villages agreed to fight it. In the case of villages that decided to accept the Jewish state, there would be an infiltration of foreign troublemakers coming all the way from Iraq. And they forced their anti-Israeli views on the village. So a village that was, let's say, pro-Israeli at the beginning would turn anti-Israeli towards the end of the war. The fate of the anti-Israeli villages was not very good. There are always exceptions to the rule. For example, it was vital that we would clear out space for an airport because we couldn't survive a war without an airport. So Arabs living next to the airport had to go, whether they were pro or anti-Israeli, doesn't matter, because it was a necessity of the war. Things like that happened. So the way forward is to analyze the internal dynamics of the Arab society and try to untangle it, not treat them as a one whole, and also not treating them as individuals because it just doesn't work. It will not work because the individual is forced to behave in a certain way in the Middle East by the surrounding. There is not much of a freedom of a choice in the Middle East. And as for Chazy's very good idea that we will edit their history book, first of all, we, the Israelis, have to decide what history we want to write in the history books. We have not decided it among ourselves, and therefore it's quite hard to force our non-existent unified view on the Arabs. So unfortunately, the way of solving the Arab problem is going first through the Jewish problem. End of speech.
Thank you for that, Yoav. Zeke, what's up? Look like you're not happy with the things that were being said.
No, I think I agree with Yoav like pretty much all the way. I think he's right. I would say as far as I probably come out. I guess I feel like I sound like the Palestinian apologist in here because I'm disagreeing with like the mainstream of thought. So I feel like I'm coming off as that. I'm not like I don't know. I am who I am. You know, like I always say, like I tend to have. I read a lot of books. I've read a lot up on the on this conflict. I find a lot of interesting things about it. But I feel like there's a lot of nuance being lost here. Like when I mention the settlers, I know it's a very because I talk about Yosef about that, and he gets very defensive about that as well. I'm just trying to provide the idea that there are some reasons why some in the Palestinian street would feel that there's not a true partner on the other side of the border, whatever you want to call it. Whether that's true or not, it's more about perception. And I feel like a lot of times, like I believe it was Bennett who's brought up the idea of Hezbollah recently with the rest of the world. Like there's kind of been a loss of that, especially with Ben Gvir and Smotrich. And
Did I hear the word Bennett?
He did hear the word Bennett.
Yeah.
Let's just take a step back.
Sure.
Let's just take a step back.
Sure.
The problem is, first of all, I recommend. I don't know if you're already into Bennett, right? If you've already gone so far, there is a former member of Knesset that's actually running now or trying to run a new party. Her name is Einat Wilf.
Okay.
Okay. She has interviews in perfect English as well. She has a book called Peace, Not Now. And I recommend you follow up with her because you're going to get a perspective from, let's say, a hardcore lefty. I just want to note about the settler riots. Any settler that is acting illegally or acting in violence or hurting someone should obviously be in jail. And you hear that across the board from religious leaders in Israel, from other people in Israel. Do I think there's a problem with how the police are taking care of this? Yes, it's a problem. Again, the numbers are minuscule compared to like and that's why mentioning it is sort of like a red herring because it's not an actual party. That's not the excuse. And that's the idea is before settlers, we'll take it back. Before Israel, before 1948, in 1917, they were still murdering Jews, right? And that had nothing to do with settlers. Yeah. It had nothing to do.
Sure.
Now,
yeah.
as I mentioned, do I think that Israel has to recognize the concept of the Nakba? Yeah, I do. I do think there's trauma to the Palestinian people, and that has to be addressed. I completely agree with that, and that's not a sentiment that doesn't exist in Israel, unfortunately, and that's a problem. 100%. The nuance that you're looking for, though, is and why it's hard for me to sort of like, and I feel like as being like progressive, quote unquote, as I am, should be like enough of an olive branch. But the fact of the matter is, there's been multiple attempts at peace. You could say some were not real enough, but there's plenty that were. And the fact that the representative of the British mandate comes back to England and says the problem is that there's one country that wants Israel. There's one group that wants to be a country, and there's another group that wants to make sure that other group never becomes a country. And that's the problem. And the problem is with Palestinians, right? And I said earlier, I don't really know what that group means, is because the group identity is built on the fact of denying Israel's identity. That's the core of that identity. And that's why it's not a real identity. And they'll never be able to move forward. And this is something that Ponder was mentioning, that like it's a fact, it's on the ground. And that's why when the head of Ram comes out with a declaration saying it recognizes Israel as the Jewish state, that to me is a huge step forward. And of course, it should be put on signs, and everyone should be putting on their shoulders and being rah rah. That's amazing. The problem is, even in his own party, right? There's a big group that's like, no way. So that's why any side conversation is like, I'll give you what you want, right? Like, open up the gates and less shooting, less killing. Sure. Great. All I want is stop trying to murder me. But that's a big problem, because many of them, and like I said earlier, not inherently evil, not racially evil, possessed by an evil ideology, right? It's a problem.
Yeah, I have no problem with
Jesse,
that.
I'm so glad you said this, because that's kind of, Zeke, I don't know, maybe you've heard this too. Like, that's actually being discussed right now. A lot of people in the United States, especially with what happened with the teenagers, that there are there are people who really do believe that there are groups in the United States that are possessed with a level of evil, demonic energy and hatred, that they want to unalive other groups. They will never leave that mentality of wanting to unalive other people. They do not want peace, and they don't want to build on their own. They don't want their own infrastructure. I want to come into your space because you have built something. You have built infrastructure. Because you can build infrastructure, you inherently are a problem that has to be eradicated, and then I'm going to take your infrastructure and then make it my own. Like, it just keeps happening over and over. And the situation that occurred in Texas is like a very small microcosm, because it's now becoming more evident that there are those who they just don't want peace. They just don't want to just chill out and live. There's plenty in the United States. There's plenty of money everywhere. Just work. Go to work. Start a family. Buy a house. Chill. There's some who don't want to do that.
Do you know what's happening?
Why are you giggling? It's true, Jesse.
Do you know what's happening in Ireland, Zeke?
Belfast, yeah.
Okay, so you know what started all the riots? The guy was trying to decapitate.
Yes.
Right. So this is something which I was explaining to my son recently, which is like, I was telling my son, okay, let's say you're in school and you see this bully, he's pushing this other kid. I'm like, what do you do? He's like, I'll try, to stop him. I was like, okay, what if you notice that the bully is bigger than you? What do you do then? But he's really hurting this other kid. He's like, I'll still try to do something. I'm like, what's the risk you're taking? He's like, that the kid will like push me back. Now, I'm okay with my son doing that equation because he's thinking of Hollywood. Worst case scenario, the bully will like push me on the floor or maybe give me a punch. The problem is when you're dealing with, let's say, this guy that wants to decapitate your head right now, you're like, whoa. That wasn't like ever part of like the escalation that I ever, and this goes back to the beginning of this stream with Jacob about Iran and this deal, which is, if no one in the West wants to fight and everyone's like, listen, either we're too guilty or we feel like whoever's not white is oppressed, or like you have to realize, like, you bomb them and you threaten them, but Iran still doesn't care. They rather get bombed and rather have their people get killed than do anything. Once you're playing with someone that's playing like those kind of rules, you can't use the same your classic.
Tactics.
Yeah, exactly.
Tactics.
It's not gonna work. So like the people are rioting because they're like, if this guy's chopping people's heads off, you understand, like, there's such a divide between what we think is, like, okay. So when you're in that kind of world, you can't, and that's why it's ridiculous, because you're dealing with that kind of enemy. You are still dropping leaflets. Yeah. You only end up killing, which is horrible. If we remove the terrorists, there ends up being, let's say, 30 to 40,000 people killed, right? Which is like a fraction compared to all the other wars out there, and yet you're considered like a horrible person as far as Israel. So you're talking about, let's say, not only is it like insane new rules, double standards, right? So I do think we need to be sensitive, like Ponder's mentioning over here, which is like you have a reality where there's been 3 assassination attempts at Donald Trump, right? You understand the story of JFK is still with us today. Like, that story has enough gravitas to it. Yet 3 assassination attempts and 1 nicking him by the ear. We're like, that was like yesterday's news. So like we have to realize that we're in a reality that is extremely more violent, and the tools you have to combat it seem to be irrelevant.
Okay, I will repeat the same speech that I gave before, but now with different actors. The people who shot Trump were not Iranians, and they were not Palestinians. Before the West goes to fight Iran, the West has to finish its internal infighting. I mean, there's a large portion of the internet who alleges that this war is more of an internal West war than a war of the West against Iran. One would think that the navies of Britain and France and Denmark would have joined the war, at least symbolically. It's a huge thing that did not happen. In the time when somebody at the West is shooting at Trump, it's a war. It's a hot shooting war, but it's not against Iran.
This is your chance, Zeke. Ask away. You have a rabid Zionist, as Jacob likes to say over here.
Hey,
A messy.
Yeah, I have no problem with Zionism. That's the thing. I feel like I'm really being like put into this.
No,
Like,
no,
kind of,
I'm
you
joking.
know, you're
But
good.
can we all, everyone explain what does that mean, though? I'm
You know
sorry.
what it
Like, I
means,
know.
Ponder.
Okay. Am I correct, Zeke? Like, Israel has the right to exist. So I'm correct when I say that.
So you say that I don't believe in nation states. I'm not a nation state guy. I'm a city state guy. Me and Yosef once again had this back and forth. I don't really believe nation states are truly. I don't think it could be a true polity. So I'm not a big nation state guy. So I don't really believe in any nation states. So I'm not the right person to affirm.
Biblically?
Not biblically. Not in terms of. I know nations are in the Bible, so that'd be different. I would say nations as a group of people is different than like modern term of a nation state as America, right? I feel like America is too broad a polity of too many people with multiple polities within it to be a true one country and having one unique, like one culture, if that would make sense. Like America is extremely diverse. I think it's too turbulent. I would say like New York City could be a polity, right? It could be a nation in that kind of idea versus say the entire America.
So can Israel then, I guess.
Correct. Yes, because it'd be one people. So yeah.
Sorry, Chazi, what is our time limit?
There's no time limit right now. I mean, I'm
Jacob said
working.
about something about next podcast.
Oh, you mean in 20 minutes he has his thing? Yeah. You're right. 1 second.
Sorry, I mean, we are staying in Jacob's house. We have to respect his rules.
Yeah.
Okay, so Zeke, I guess
Now it's now, by the way. So let's
Okay.
final words.
Um,
Take it away, Ponder.
I know this sounds horrible. Everyone's going to get mad at me for saying this, but I'm at a point where I wouldn't. Orwellian future just doesn't sound that bad. That's all I have to
Don't
say.
worry, we're going great places. Really, he's around the corner.
I'm just saying.
I would say I just feel like my reason why I made what I said about Ponder, I feel like she was taking a more maximalist approach to these kind of issues. And I know there's so much fun stuff in the middle. And I do agree about the Iran, especially Iran as Persian culture, very martyr, post-Shia, very martyr heavy specific. So a very different mindset to say the Arab or other different people in the region, right? So
The Persians are
understand-
incredible. They're incredible history, incredible, beautiful history. Like their women are known for their beauty.
It's an ugly
Cyrus
beauty.
the
But yes,
Great-
you are correct. It's
they
a very
had Cyrus the
different kind of
Great's
culture.
mentioned in the Bible, and then look what happened. Like there's the Shah, and then like the Ayatollah dude came in, and everything went to hell. And like you're seeing these, not negating their culture and their history, but they were moving pretty Western. And then, I mean, and I just like they were saying, like like the Paris, the Middle East, not Lebanon, but Iran, the Persians, like Tehran, so Western, like the women looked incredible. Like, yeah. Then look now. Like, no. Like, it's like a step backwards. And then in the same breath, like this whole death to Israel, like this is nuts.
If I have a final
I
take, I
just-
would say I think it's important to recognize that there are external forces working to change how things happen on a smaller scale, whether it's Carmelo Anthony, whether it's the Palestinians. Like from the start of the Palestinian Arab-Israeli conflict, it was always outside. The Arabs were telling the Palestinians, don't accept the peace deal because
Aren't they not
we will
Arabs
support
though?
you.
Aren't the Palestinians Arabs? though? They are.
Just making it easier so we can understand it, right?
Okay,
so
I understand.
The countries surrounding
Sir,
it,
I
right?
understand.
And
I
then
understand.
as time went on, Israel is the underdog. They were the cool kid. Things have changed since then. And now the Palestinians are the cool kid and the underdog. And you have people on TikTok. And everybody's, like you said, people aren't literate. They're on TikTok. They're not reading books. I got all these books back here. They're not reading any of them, right? So they're going to say,
Yeah,
okay, we're going to
they're-
TikTok. And they're seeing what Ian Carroll is saying. And he's saying, well, the Palestinian is the underdog. And that's who we should support. And so the Palestinians aren't going to accept the peace deal until they lose the support of the rest of the world and of all the cool kids, right? And that's just kind of the thing that we're in. Unfortunately, I don't know how you change that. I don't know how, because we're in a globalized world more than ever, more than even like 1960s or 50s, right? So I think that should be important to kind of note. So it's not always the people on the ground what they might want. I would say most people, whether they're Arabs or Israelis or whatever, they generally would want to have peace or live in their own prosperity. But there's people around them pushing them into certain paths. So that's what I would say.
I would just highlight also that we can't, it's very hard for us to blame people that are seeing nonstop reels of just murdered children and murdered kids. It's just way too much for any human to handle. And it's just a reality that, like, I mean, and it's horrible. And you're saying you don't know what's going to be done. We're going to have to fight fire with fire. Israel needs, and this goes back to your Bennett line, like Israel does need to do a much better job. We completely lost the Hasbara war. And we need to do a much better job explaining. Like, I don't know why we don't talk about, let's say, every time Jordan says some nasty tweet, we should just be like, we're just happy to continue giving you 90% of your, like, your water. That's it. We should just keep on saying like all the things that we're doing. But all right, we need to leave. This has been a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys will join again. This is Jacob's.
You both are so awesome. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
letting me
Pleasure, as
on.
always.
Thank you. Thank you.
Catch you guys on the
Thank
flip.
you, everyone. Thank you, Bye Chat. Bye, Hezi. You're so awesome.
See
Yes,
you later.
you are. Bye, Hezi. Bye.